to call this thing?
I got it. Okay. Incredible, new, fantastic, astonishing, mighty, original, uncanny, sensational podcast.
I'm just going to put down infamous.
Hello and welcome to Infamous, the audio podcast. This is Brandon, or Mutilus on the forum.
This is Parker. Go by Twig on forums.
This is Jeremy. I go by I'll Never Play Captain America and Marvel Crisis Protocol on the forums.com.
That's got to be...
Now,
/
Are you only saying that because we broke our... You're saying that because we broke our other pact that we had, that we would never do.
Oh, God. It felt so good, though,
and I don't think Parker doesn't know about this yet.
Felt so good.
Parker, it's like when you leave your kids alone unsupervised, you know, all the times you do that and you tell me about it later and how it was a bad idea at the time. You left us unsupervised for a week.
Oh.
And so it was probably just as bad as all those times you left your unattended children at home alone.
Ooh.
So we both played Shiri last week.
Oh!
It was gross. I still feel dirty. I took 9 showers. Doesn't matter.
But
it felt better than I thought it would. It's so good.
The best part is during the game, and this is a battle report, so it'll be posted probably by the end of the weekend. During the battle report, we both try to use a Shuri rule and are wrong, but we're wrong on the low side, and so we're cheating ourselves on how she works. I shoot him, and he's like, "You didn't roll wild, you don't get to push me." I was like, "No, it's just always." And he's like, "There is no way, she just always pushes." And then he goes, and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna do her rerolls thing," and it's like, "No, it's range 4, not range 3." And he's like, "What the fuck?" It was so dumb.
Oh.
Yeah, so we did it. We broke the pact, so there's got to be a new pact made.
okay.
Neither of us are ever going to play Ebony Maw. Done. Moving on.
Check.
Yeah, until he gets errated, then we might. So yeah, that was a fun time. So announcements. We don't have a lot of announcements today. However, we do have more and more battle reports being posted every day. The 15th live in-person battle report is going up tonight. And so that puts us at 18 total, and I've got enough games recorded to get us, I think, to 19. And so we have almost 20 battle reports posted now.
That is amazing. I feel like that's got to be... I've not perused all of the YouTubes for content like that, but we've got to be, getting up there. That's a lot of battle reports.
Yeah, we're posting them really quickly. There's a couple things we need to fix. I've been getting some good feedback online. I might be trying to overdo it, but I try and put the lists up on the screen at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And some people might like it, some people might not. But I mean, you don't really need to see us talking about our list. And so I don't think it's very useful to just watch a blank screen, really. And so it pops up there while we're doing our walkthrough thing. And so when you're talking about your list in person, the people can read along with you on the screen. And then once we've both read our lists, I change it over to what we've selected from our rosters and get rid of the stuff we didn't take. And then while we're doing some of the early deployment stuff, you can read that, and then it goes away for finishing deployment. We need to move our dice towers away from the microphone. I've found out the dice rolling is way too loud, and so we're going to fix that. But that was just an oversight, not thinking of, well, of course the mic's on the camera, and we put our dice towers on that side of the board, which was a mistake. So anyway, we'll get that fixed, but you should go check out our battle reports. They're on YouTube under Infamous MCP, and there's usually a link to the newest one I put on our Facebook page under the same name. Unfortunately, we have no news because everyone is in quarantine holiday COVID, which is ultimate COVID lockdown. So moving on, currently playing, I've still been playing my Cabal list. I've completely cut out the Brotherhood side and just playing Cabal now, and it's been a lot of fun. Jeremy, do you want to talk about your new Defenders list?
Basically, I wanted to play some Doctor Strange Defenders, and again, you already brought it up, but it felt dirty, and it felt so good. Shuri decided to join the club, and the shit went live. It's like wielding a humongous weapon that I don't know where the trigger is, Because, I mean, it's on video. It's monkeys fucking footballs, dumpster fires, whatever. It's a mess, but all the stuff is there for me to win. I just can't seem to do it. It's really cool.
Well, it's good to know what's going through your head while I'm thinking about tactics. And you're just monkeys and footballs.
Monkeys
and
footballs. I've never heard that one. It's beautiful.
So I've been editing the video of you playing Doctor Strange for the first time, and that was a pretty brutal game because you were just like standing in the middle of the board, like, what do I do now? And then like him dying.
Yeah.
And so the last game you played was quite a bit different. Are you starting to like Doctor Strange now?
I'm kind of finding out. I see what he does and how he does it, and now I need to figure out what models I want to basically build the list with, now that I understand what he does.
Yeah.
So I do see what he does. I'm not sure that I'm in love with him, but he's really cool, and I'm glad to kind of get the experience with him.
Enlighten me.
Real quick,
what...
I just want to say real quick, he has the highest learning curve of the entire game, I think. I don't think it's particularly close. Doctor Strange is definitely the hardest to play model, because he has so many options and so many ways to do stuff. It's very easy to make the wrong decision. And so that's all I want to say. Parker, go ahead.
He's like a PlayStation. He only does everything. So he's like... Mm-hmm. So I was curious, Jeremy, what was your big, like... What did you realize first that you were like, oops, I'm doing him wrong? Like, what was the thing that you learned early?
He does create and have a lot of power, and he can always spend it whenever he wants. It's the decisions of where he needs to spend it that are critical. He just can't go spending all the time for everything, because he just doesn't do that. And that's what I'm kind of learning right now. That's the biggest thing. And also, he can't blow up the world himself like Magneto can. He really needs a buddy. And sometimes his buddy can be Magneto. That's fine. But he needs a buddy. He needs a helper. He needs something, depending on what your list is designed to do. But he can do a lot. He just can't do everything.
Yeah, he and when you activate him is so absolutely crucial to your success. Like, when he activates in the turn has to be at the exact right time, or you're going to be out of position. You're not going to be where you need to be to buff people or heal them. If you activate too early, you won't be able to heal people. If you activate too late, you won't be able to control people. It's really like everything about him, because he needs to do so much to justify his point cost, and he doesn't do ridiculous amounts of damage, so he has to make up for it in all the little minutia stuff he does, all the utility he brings. And so if it just activating him in the wrong order is crippling to him. Like, you have to get it exactly right.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that I'm kind of scattered when it comes to my list building. Like, 2 days later, right when I start to learn him, I'm looking at other models going, okay, so I kind of saw what he did, now I'll throw something else in. So I'm going to spend a few more games playing him. You'll probably see him next week a bit, and we'll see what happens.
Cool. Yeah, the first game I played him, I really wasn't that impressed. I thought I was a little too high on him originally, because he looked broken when we first saw his card. Then I played him like, oh, this guy's just okay. And then I didn't play him for like 3 months. So, and now I've been playing him a lot. Now he's like, oh my god, this guy's crazy good, because it's if you can squeeze every bit of juice out of that lemon, like, it's super worth it. But if you're just getting a little bit, it's not worth it. All right, so that was the Defenders list. We talked briefly last week on an X-Men list that we kind of started building. It was based off of a list that John had played. And so basically the concept is, how far can you push Cyclops' leadership ability? And so we tried it with Vision and characters that like spending power to attack, like Venom or Wolverine. Like, people have really quality attacks that they have trouble affording a lot, because Wolverine having to charge in a lot is not going to have leftover power to then do his like Berserker Barrage attack and stuff like that. Venom's another great one. Venom wants to We Are Venom every time he has power to do it. And so we basically built a list of a bunch of people like that, but you have to play X-Men, and so you're basically putting in Cyclops for 4 points, which is a little rough. And then you have to play 3 X-Men, so it's usually Beast and or Storm, and then probably Wolverine. Sabretooth is usually in the list because he pairs so well with Wolverine, because you get to double dip on the tactics cards. And then you need a power generator, so we had Wong and or Vision, depending on the list build. If you have enough points for Vision, you put him in, and he just generates power for everybody else, while being kind of like a little support model. And then if you don't have points for it, Wong can generate a decent amount of power, although it's not nearly as good. So we played it once. It kind of functioned. The thing that made me the most disappointed about the list is it seems like Cyclops' leadership ability just obviously is worse than Storm's, and no one will question that, but we were trying to make it work. But there's a lot of situations that it's just worse than you think it is. Like, you can't take power off of dazed people because they can't interact with special rules. And then also, you can't use it because it triggers specifically when you're declaring an attack action. So it doesn't work on, like, Sabretooth and Venom's retaliate abilities. So you can't do We Are Venom on so many snacks. You can, you just have to pay the 3 on Venom, which is possible, but that's a 5 power spend on when it's not your turn, and so it's sometimes kind of hard. And so that was like the whole point of the list, and so I've soured on this a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much what I feel about that. It's a solid list. It works. It's just not as great as we were hoping. So that brings us to our main topic today, which is we're going to do another list build, kind of like what we did originally. I think it was episode 1 and 2. We did the first list build where we did the Avengers Asgard list. And so we're going to try and recreate that with a little bit more in-depth thought now that we all have a lot more experience at the game. So guys, what are you thinking? What kind of list should we build today?
We've been all kind of gravitating towards like single goals lists recently. Mm-hmm. Like, I want this to be like a list that gives us, like grief, like your opponent has to deal with a lot of reactions on their turn, or like it's really controlling so you can play scenario well, or it's kind of all in on attrition, or it's all in on offense, or all in kind of range.
Yeah.
Energy has been a big theme we've been staring at after all of our work on defense. So maybe unlike the first build where we were kind of making kind of a general, it was a generalist list, right? It had a point, like a way for it to win, but I like the idea of us focusing on, like, let's pick a strategy that we want, and then we go attack that with the rest of the list, because I think that's something we're learning in the game right now that maybe this is wrong, but I'm beginning to believe that versatility is not as important as having a very strong game plan going into it that you are going to try to execute over your opponent. Am I wrong? Am I wrong on that?
So
I feel like it's a benefit right
Jeremy,
now.
why don't you go ahead?
So when we talk about game plan, I think the thing we're skipping over on this is missions. So your game plan is never to kill anybody, right? And I think that comes in other games where you go, how much can I murder? How hard can I hit things? And that's something that I tend to screw up a lot, because I lose track of it, and I kind of go down the rabbit hole of, I just want to murder people, but then you lose the game. So what I'd like to see, and the struggle that I have on the table, is trying to get that goddamn E mission with the Gamma and Demons, and what else is the other?
Montesi
yeah.
formula.
So that one always gets me, and then you have the extracts that are kind of like elsewhere, but trying to hold the center and you don't have the right list for it, I feel like you just get brained, because they'll have a couple strong models just tear the center away from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely lean really hard on my attrition play to win scenario. It's kind of like I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but it's like the road less traveled, or like an alternate way to accomplish your goal. Like, if your opponent has no models, they can't score points. And so that's like the concept if you're just playing a very strong attrition list. And it might sound like a dirty word of like, I'm going to not lose on scenario by murdering people, but if you can accomplish it, it definitely works. But it has the weakness of, like, everyone's had those games where you, like, timing just isn't on your side. Like, you get to a thing and you pick it up, and this is the crucial tiebreaker one. Like, we're going to basically score the same amount of points unless I get this middle extract, right? So you get up there and you take it, and that's the exact moment, like, dice spike happens and you get one-shotted. And then you drop the token, they pick it up, and then you end up losing priority still, and they move away with the token, and you never really got a chance to take it. Is where, like, as long as that one bad thing didn't happen, it probably would have gone the other way. And so, like, that's the problem with the attrition style, is that you're very vulnerable to, like, one thing going against you, and then it all, like, going to hell, like, basically, is my opinion of it. Like, I've had those games where it's like, even playing Web Warriors, where it's like, okay, well, I don't really need to go hard on scenario because I can just beat this guy up. And I got suckered into attrition. And then, like, you have those Captain America God turns where he just will not die. And you're like, okay, well, I've just wasted my entire round. And my opponent, meanwhile, has gained advantage in scenario, and it's too late for me to back out now. And it's like, gets me into a bad place. So I think it's definitely a viable strategy saying that I'm going to win on attrition. But I think it's a little less consistent than, like, an all-out scenario play. But you're a lot more vulnerable to, like, scenario choice at that. Like, if you don't get the scenarios you want to play with, like, let's say you get locked into Gamma, and then, like, your other option, and then the mission that you chose is, like, very counteractive to that, because you're doing, like, Gamma with, like, a low count extraction mission. And so not only are you forced to the middle, but you can't score enough points to, you can't score enough points to overcome the slow scoring of Gamma, or even, like, demons.
I always feel like I have a bit of control when the missions are the horizontals, but the vertical dead center, like when the entire every model converges on the center of the table, I always feel like I'm outgunned. Like, I just don't have it to do that game. Yeah.
And I'm surprised at that based on how often I play Gamma or play the Echo deployment against you. I think you would have been used to it by now.
I just hope and pray that it's not Gamma again.
Every time. It's like, at least if it's not Gamma, I don't have to stand over here.
Ah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start talking about archetypes of lists and see what we think we want to do the most. And so, obviously, there's the scenario rush, where it's all you're not even going to try and attack them, you're just going to try and score points.
So, Web Warriors?
Parker? No, I hear you.
Do you want to start? Do you want to make notes of these?
Oh, that's right. I'm making notes in there.
Do your job.
I didn't know this was a notes.
Thin ice, buddy.
We're in notes.
You were suspended last week. You might get cut this week.
We're in notes. We're in notes mode now. Got it. Parker, activate notes mode. Got it.
Yeah. So we've got Scenario Rush, which I think there's multiple factions fall into, but obviously Web Warriors are the like poster child.
I think any of the Horde.
So after Scenario Rush,
any of the Horde lists,
any of the quantity factions. Yeah, like Guardians,
Wakanda.
Maybe. And so there's on the other side of the spectrum. So I don't know if you want to put this at the bottom of the list. There is like all out attrition, like just murder mode or whatever you want to call it. I think there's the more, and that can be either. I guess it's both. Attrition in general is just going to be, I'm going to win through fighting, and so that doesn't mean necessarily you do damage. It might be like more of an Avengers style where you are just trying to not die for as long as possible. Then there is the high synergy kind of lists, kind of like Defenders, where you have a lot of like healing, a lot of buffs that you have, maybe a lot of redirecting attacks or like debuffing. And so maybe like a Guardian style list where it's more like, I'm going to pile up all these negative effects on you while my moderately average people overpower you now that you've been weakened. Or it could be like Defenders where it's just like, I'm just going to put like Taskmaster up here and just pile so many buffs on him you'll never be able to kill him. Do you guys think of any other like styles?
What about can we just call MODOK a style? Like a style, like MODOK
turrets.
Like, I think
I'm gonna play the artillery list.
Well, stacking control effects, that's not really synergy, right? I feel like control effects, and that's not necessarily scenario either, but having a lot of control effects, not necessarily debuffs, but specifically like movement, right? Moving, your army is not where you think it is. Is that?
Well, yeah, but board control is mostly, I think, a scenario. I mean, that doesn't necessarily. I'm thinking more of like archetypes, like game plans, I guess.
Okay.
Or like goals necessarily more than like list identity.
Never lose priority.
And
list.
then there's, I think that falls in the attrition plan though, doesn't it? I mean, do any of the I'm always going to have priority lists not play like Murder Town lists?
Sure. I mean, that's your Black Order. That's your Magneto plus two big guys. Yeah.
I feel like these three. I feel like the synergy.
Sorry, I was just
go ahead.
Yeah, no, you go ahead. I think I know where you're going.
I don't even know if a synergy would even belong. I believe there's really only two ways to play this game then, right? I feel like the high synergy is just a way to. So if you're playing a synergy list, you're trying to increase the likelihood. It's almost most synergies are about survival, right? I don't think.
Yeah.
I think synergies is just a form of attrition. You're just trying to survive longer than your opponent is. So attrition has lots of subcategories like synergy, trying to be resilient, all the attack back effects, trying to reactionary type effects, always having priority.
Stacking a lot of similar effects or people that are really good with each other specifically. That's why I'm thinking now we might want to change the way we're looking at this. So what if we did like high damage output list and like high defense list, and then put synergy in there as a third option? And so like that's more of like a list composition than like an overall strategy. But that might be a better way of looking at this. Do you guys agree or do you disagree? So there's like all offense, all defense, high synergy, and then like board control.
So basically, you're selecting you select a strategy, and then you're selecting like a composition type. Okay, and then you go from there. I buy that.
I think you also have to splash in, your meta a little bit too. I mean, your list has to also have something to deal with the one boogeyman.
I see what you're saying, Parker. I actually meant, no, instead of doing strategies, do more of a composition-based breakdown. So I was basically saying the 4 bullet points we could talk about so far were like board control, high synergy, all offense, or like heavy offense, heavy defense.
Okay.
But yeah, I think what you have here is good, because you basically got the 2 main strategies of, do I want to do attrition or do I want to do scenario? And then we've got high offense, high defense, board control, and then just mass synergy.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like,
where you're just like stacking
this is kind of how you can you're selecting one of these as you're going through, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I see what you mean.
And then Jeremy's point is not bad, which is, do you want meta choices, right? Do you want, for example, do you want to take Grievous Wounds when the card comes out because these cards exist, right? These are.
I think he meant more of a like, am I going to intentionally play something that's strong into the things I play against, like from a faction standpoint?
Oh, okay.
Is that what you meant, Jeremy? Like, if I know everyone in my area plays like murderless, then doesn't really try and play scenario too much, should you try and play one of those meta bending scenario lists to try and take advantage of the fact that a lot of people don't play high scenario game?
No, but I see what you're getting at. But that's not what I was saying. What I'm saying is, if the new hot model came out, you might need to deal with it and think about that in your list as well.
Sure.
Yeah,
like if everyone in the area is playing like MODOK or Magneto, you might start building a list has a core fundamental ability to defeat those models.
Correct.
Through some means. Yeah. So, like, obviously, when Angela comes out, both you and I are going to have new lists ready to go just to annihilate her. And that way Parker will just have no fun. Because I know there's we've all played the war games where it's like, all right, well, my friend is super excited about his new Dreadnought model that he just got. He puts it on the table. I get to go first. You're like, I have one goal this entire game. It's to annihilate that thing before it gets to attack. And it doesn't matter if I lose the game because of it. You're not going to get to play with your new toy. And, like, that is a psychological, like, bomb that you can just drop on somebody. Like, they're like, boo, I got my behemoth all painted up, and then turn 1, you're like, no, my behemoth died, and you just like mentally check out of the game. Like, I know people play that way, mainly Jeremy. He's not denying it.
Hey, if you pick a way to play, I'll do that for sure. I absolutely will do that. Very spiteful. So
okay, so
where are we at?
Obviously, when it comes to building a list, your personal playstyle goes into a lot. But we're trying to build like a just generic list with no particular player in mind. I personally think the scenario play is the strongest. I think attrition lists are my playstyle, but I think the scenario lists bring a lot of new intricate ways to play the game, and also a lot of the scenario lists are not completely terrible at playing attrition either. Like, Web Warriors obviously can beat people up. They're just not designed to do that exclusively. Like, Cabal is meant to just kill people. That's their whole point. But
yeah, so if of the choices that you have to make when you're playing the game, you don't get to choose what your opponent is playing, but you do get to at least choose 2 of the cards and pick one of them that is something that you decided. So you decided if you want to spread the entire board with a shitload of counters, do you want to pick them up? Do you have a list that does that? You've decided that if you play the blue cards, then do you want to play in the middle, the sides, whatever. So of those things that you get to decide, your list needs to be dictated by that, number one. I think that's number one. And I'm terrible at it. That's why I know it's important. I'm terrible at it.
Yeah, this game is pretty player friendly. So if there's something that you are noticing makes a difference in your games, you should probably make an effort to be better at that.
Absolutely.
So do you guys feel like there's a trend yet on who, like the player with priority, what type of mission they choose? Do you find you're always choosing red or blue when you have priority, or my opponents are always choosing red or blue when they have priority?
I think it's blue. I think everybody picks blue for the most part. I'll choose red from time to time just to mix it up, but blue to me is where it's at, because that has the interesting mechanics of, oh, I didn't take any energy defense. Shit, they chose meteors on me, so I probably won't get many of those. Or I take damage, etc.
Also, I think part of it as well, I just want to say this real quick, the secures don't move, and mostly they don't. So if you're choosing blue, one of them does. But if you're choosing blue, you're choosing where the battle is going to be fought.
Correct.
As where if you're choosing red, you're choosing what the maximum scoring potential is, because the extract missions are going to be more plentiful in control points throughout the game. But the blue mission, the secures are going to determine where the battles are fought at. And so I think choosing blue at this point is stronger. I think originally we had decided on red, but I think nowadays blue is actually better. And so... Parker, did you have something to say?
I was actually going to say, I've always wanted to pick blue, always, and I don't know if I'll ever have anybody else change my mind, because exactly what you just said. Choosing where most of the fight needs to happen on the board is such a big deal, because it allows you from this point, like the point we're at right now. If I always got to pick blue, if I knew that, oh my gosh, my list building would be so strong, because I'd have a plan for that game so hard. The fact that I don't always get it, or the fact that it's a 50-50, is one of the reasons why my plan may have to shift dynamically as the game goes on. Because as soon as my opponent picks a blue that that my plan doesn't that my list won't be maneuverable enough to go acquire, or doesn't want to have that fight, well, then you have exactly what Brandon was talking about. As soon as somebody picks one of those E deployments for the secure, he just feels like I don't have a brawl list, and he picked a brawl scenario. He's completely dictated this game for me, and that is exactly what that is the reason why blue is so important, is because it totally changes the actual outcome of the game because of where all the fight's going to happen, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I obviously I agree. That's what I just said. Yeah. So, I think blue is probably the correct choice then, because the more I think about it, I mean, if you're playing you want to do a maximum scoring potential list, not getting locked into like Gamma Wave is very helpful. Also, you can pick one that forces your opponent's brick list to spread out more. Which is obviously good. And if we're thinking about it, even if they're playing, like, because I know because I play the brick lists. And so if I have to choose red, there isn't really one I can do that punishes a skirmisher list. Like, if they're already so fast and maneuverable, they're going to be better at collecting them than I am anyway. So the only thing I can really do is play Montesi, which locks us into an echo deployment, but it's just 3 tokens. Mm. And if they have priority, they're getting the middle one anyway. And so I'm only getting 1 extract if I choose Montesi. Now, admittedly, it's going to be a lower scoring scenario, but still. Yeah, so your only other option is to play, shell game and go with one of the Charlie deployments and just go who can find the piece of candy first.
You do. That's the answer.
Yeah, it's always find the queen, and it's
you
the
always
answer is play
find
Toad, and you're guaranteed to find it. Yeah, I do tend to find it a lot.
Or Punisher. Punisher finds it.
I admit I've been finding it a ridiculously high percentage of the time lately, which has been really convenient. But I can tell you, of all the times I used to play Black Order, I would never find it. It was always my opponent.
Valkyrie never finds it.
Alrighty. Yeah, Valkyrie never finds
Never.
it. She just gets killed by Punisher. I have been really enjoying. So, Parker, we've been playing Alien Ship Crashes Downtown a lot. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is he'll put Valkyrie on one of the flanks because she's a great flank character. She's really good at being on her own. Mm-hmm. And I'll just put Punisher opposite. He'll run up and check a point. and fail to find it, Punisher will advance medium, double tap with hip shot, then spec op training forward and use his last power to find it. And so then the next
such
turn,
bullshit.
It's such bullshit because you can't like not be within range 3 of him. We both deploy directly opposite, and he checks the point. It's like, all right, I move up and I shoot you, and he's like, damn it! And because you get hip fire gives you 2 powers, so you spec off sword and you check the objective, and he always finds it. It's so funny. The finding really it is the cherry on top, but like the fact that you get to do that is so annoying.
He's really actually amazing for that scenario, and that's because he can always do that. He can always be across from somebody.
You know why Mystique is worse than him? Because she cannot do what I just said to do. Like, that's why she's bad. She doesn't have spec op training, and her rapid fire is random. It's so dumb. Anyway. Okay. So, let's go and dig into this. I'm of the opinion we should build a scenario-oriented list. It doesn't have to be all-in scenario. It can be dual purpose. But we have 3 votes. My vote is we need to build a scenario-first list. What are your guys' opinions?
Well, I mean, I brought it up in that way, so I'm definitely for that. That's okay. Where I think you need to start, and that's usually where I don't start. So that's my problem.
Yeah,
I was going to say I feel like one of the things about this game, and maybe I'm really interested in new scenario as well, but for an academic kind of purpose, I feel like a lot of us. I say us being, maybe some listeners who are coming from other miniatures games, all 3 of us here at least, we come into most games thinking attrition first, right? Like, what are the offensive stats? What are the defensive stats? How can I win, right? How do I kill you? And I don't look at a piece. I did not look at the Punisher and think, oh, well, the Punisher can always, do an attack and then also get the point. You know what I mean? Like, that's not something I read when I read Punisher, but I should have been. So I think thinking with it through that lens is important because when you look at the Punisher, you look at all the damaging things, you also think of the Punisher, right? The Punisher is not a rescue guy. He is I'm going to go murder all your faces guy. So thinking of him as a fantastic scenario, a fantastic scenario piece on the opening turns is really interesting to think of him through that lens. So for that reason, I want to do scenario as well.
Okay. So we're all in agreement. We're going with the scenario type build. And so let's look at our options here. Parker, do you want to start making notes of a list of factions?
Yep.
So obviously, Web Warriors is going to be on the list of possible factions to play. Mm-hmm. Other lists that are pretty good at it, Criminal Syndicate is pretty good at dominating scenario if they really try.
They're supposed to.
Yeah.
I don't know that they do.
Maybe it's just you not playing scenario right.
Maybe I'm playing it perfectly and Criminal is failing me. Maybe.
I want to say Brotherhood, but obviously not. I think once the rest of their characters come out, I think Brotherhood will be a pretty solid scenario list, but not right now. So what do you guys think? What's another good option for scenario play?
Asgards are amazing. Asgard's amazing for scenario.
Okay.
There's so many throws.
Asgard.
Yep.
They do have a lot of throws. They have a lot of board manipulation.
And
a lot of their stuff is expensive, but they get powers.
Yeah, they always have power, so they can also utilize, they can make use of any of the scenarios that have that tax. They can purposely say well, I can happily pay that tax, and my opponent might not be able to.
So, would you guys say that Avengers are decent at scenario? The only reason I bring it up is because they do have a lot of defensive tech, but they also have a lot of board manipulation because Wolverine can throw people. It's really expensive, but he can. Thor can obviously throw people. Hulk can. Captain Marvel, I believe, can also throw people. Black Panther pushes. Beast can throw small people. And Cap can throw small people as well. So they do have a lot of options, but I don't know if you would consider them a scenario first faction.
Aren't they just attrition?
So.
No, it's fine. Yeah, they're definitely more of an attrition faction. I would agree. But do we want to include them in this list of theory crafting?
I was actually I don't know if I include them in that. I was actually thinking maybe Wakandans, and
I was going to ask that next.
Really, I think on the back of Shuri and the fact that they're so kind of like what Jeremy said, they're so cheap and it's so easy to build a list with them that they can easily include other control characters, and all the really cool control effects in the game that need wilds and things like that, they can help grease that wheel as a rule.
So they have 2 amazing scenario pieces. Black Panther and Shuri are both obviously incredible scenario pieces.
Right.
But Killmonger and Okoye can absolutely do nothing for scenario. Storm can, though. Like, she's got a decent throw.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's fine. We could probably throw him in there.
Yeah.
I think we have to because of Shuri. I mean, she has one of the strongest
Yeah, I mean,
in the game. Yeah.
the thing is, yeah, obviously, if you're putting Shuri in already, then Black Panther is a pretty easy justification at 4 points because he's a great flank piece. It's almost impossible to take a flank from him by himself. So, yeah, if you're already playing the leader and another model, and they have a 2-point model in faction, it's very easy to get into faction anyway. All right, so currently we have Web Warriors, Criminals, Asgard, and Wakanda. Is there any other affiliations we want to throw in? Just honorable mentions: Spider Foes, Uncanny X-Men, Guardians, Defenders, Black Order, Cabal.
I think
Other ones we
X-Men.
haven't
I think
talked about.
X-Men Storm might be worth talking about. The place effects.
so?
The place effects that she has, because someone might be moving your models off, and she just straight up. You just go back. Like most of the time,
Nothing.
you can just go back.
Mm.
Yeah, because most of the game you can be won by just nudging a model half an inch, and you can win the games.
Yeah, and we've talked about Beast and Wolverine already, and Cyclops has a push on his beam.
Mm-hmm.
And Cyclops also, and Storm's ability with Cyclops also just moving characters, right? Like he can just move them too.
Yeah.
So like they have a lot of anti-control tech just built into the characters.
And
That's
also, she comes with, is it X-Men First Class Tactics card, where everyone just gets
First
to do that
Class
shit for
is-
free?
Yeah, you get to interact for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Storm X-Men. Yeah.
So Mystique has that as a leadership ability, and so I really wanted to include Brotherhood, but you just can't, because outside of Mystique, that's your scenario. Like, that's it.
Yep.
I would actually say Sabretooth is kind of annoying, because if you attack him, he moves back onto the point.
Yeah.
But if you're playing against a true scenario player, they're just going to not attack you. So,
Right.
And they're going to be fine just standing there looking at you not being on the point.
Yeah.
So that's not really a justification. Yes, but once Juggernaut comes out, I have a feeling Juggernaut's going to have some kind of immovable rule, or at minimum be able to move other people, right? Like, he's going to just send people flying. And so that will be cool. Potentially Quicksilver will be amazing for scenario because of his speed.
Mm-hmm.
And then Scarlet Witch, I think, is going to be a lot like Doctor Strange. And so she might have a lot of board manipulation stuff too. So that could happen.
I think when those packs comes out, you'll be able to use Mystique, and that list could be.
Oh, sure. I'm actually excited to play Mystique. I just think we basically have half of her character right now because she doesn't get her leadership ability, which is like the best thing about her. Also, being able to turn a random secure into a control secure is really cool.
Yeah.
And so that being free potentially is really awesome. Because there's just not enough of them to really count. So, we currently have Web Warriors, Criminal Syndicate, Asgard, Wakandan, and X-Men. Did you really put Team Gold on there?
Yeah, well, in Gold Team,
just put X-Men.
But that Gold,
Just put X-Men.
but Blue.
But if you're playing that, you're playing X-Men. Like, it's obviously we would be playing Storm over Cyclops.
Okay.
But Cyclops could make the list.
Got
I'm
it.
just saying, like, you don't need to put Team Gold. That's fine. Anyway, I think that's probably the list of affiliations we're going to be looking at for a scenario list. A lot of the other factions that are close to being on this list don't have all their characters out or are not really focused on it. Jeremy?
My point was going to be, so we've talked about the top. Just what would be bad is Black Order. I mean, would they be like the non-scenario? Like, they're just coming to murder you. Like, to hell with it. Like, who's the worst at it?
Yeah, so you're saying if you want the opposite as like a pair to with your scenario list, is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm
Or
saying
you just
is,
want to talk about the opposite end of the spectrum?
yeah, are any bad? And if they are bad, who's the worst? That's the question I'm asking.
Black Order is definitely the worst at scenario, I think. Which
Yeah,
is kind
that
of
was the obvious
counterintuitive
choice.
because, like, we talked about how Thanos is potentially the best controller in the game if you set him up for it. But him being a 9-point model at that point is just unrealistic that you're going to put a 9-point model on the table and still win on scenario. Because you end up with 3 people, basically. Unless you're playing 20 points, you might get 4. or you're completely selling out to get other characters, but that doesn't. Then you're not playing Black Order. You're just putting Thanos in an unaffiliated list, which is okay. But like, I guess you could do something really weird like Thanos in Wakanda because they have enough cheap characters. But you're at 13 points just with Black Panther and him. So you throw in Shuri and Okoye, you're at 18?
Yep.
I guess that wouldn't be a terrible way to look at it, but I just don't think you have enough people. I guess you could cut Okoye and do a really weird 16-point 3-character list. Or is that 3? Or is that's 4, isn't it? 13. Nope, you're at 3. Mm-hmm. So yeah, your 3 would be better than it would be in Black Order because you'd be Thanos, Shuri, Black Panther. And all 3 of those models are really good at control, but everyone is out activating you. So they're just going to move on to the point as the last activation. And so unless you have more people than them, you're always giving something up as a scenario.
And none of those models say, you can't move me. Like, so they'll activate and do their thing, and then you'll just get pushed off, or, Miles will walk up and make you spit the point out.
Like, a true controller wants to activate last, and you can't do that with 3 models. It's just not an option. Unless you're just killing them all, in which case we're not, again, well, my opponent had no living models, so I won on scenario. I was like, sure. Like, way to go. Like, you did it, buddy. It's like, I used the nuclear option and then sent a guy in with a parachute. Like, I won. Like, that's not scenario.
Yeah, it's hard to be a scenario list when you have 3 models. I mean, that's a rough go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and if you squeeze in enough really cheap models, it's like, okay, well, you're just shoehorning a decent controller into another list. You could do that without spending 9 points. Like, you just throw Spider-Man in a list. It's fine. Okay, so moving on to, this is going to be kind of because last time when we did this, we were very regimental. We did characters and then tactics cards and then missions. And so this time I want us to kind of have a free-form thing, allow, if we want to change our tactics cards, allow us to go back and change our characters. We want to build the whole list around the missions we're playing. So maybe we start with the missions then, instead of starting with the characters. And we build a list of characters that want to play around these missions, right? And then we can change the missions if we want to.
Okay.
And so we said we want to choose blue, so we should probably just go ahead and start with blue. So obviously Gamma Wave, right, guys?
Just kidding. My choice would be to go horizontal because it's much more interesting, and it keeps with the scenario and it not just beat each other to death. Right.
That being said, there's only one horizontal blue mission, I think. I'm going to double check. I have this all in a spreadsheet, but so the real one that comes to my mind is Mayor Fisk intimidates witnesses. So it's a Charlie deployment, which is the middle of the board across the center line, but you only deploy the outside tokens, which is immediately going to punish any brick list because they can't just move into the center. Like it's no longer an option. They're forced to separate their forces, and so based on how they deploy, you can get a good idea of how they plan to play the game, and you can try and take advantage of that. And
I like that one.
Also, each point is worth 2, and they move when you control them. And so, potentially, they can be moved away from you, but that means you're scoring points, so I think you're fine with that. But if you actually lose one, you start bringing it back towards you. And if you can, every time you score this over your opponent, they're going to feel it, as opposed to a side point. Alright, so I like Mayor Fisk. Next best one. You don't want to choose the ones that are spend power to flip unless that's in our game plan. But we're definitely not taking Gamma. We're definitely not taking Demons. They're both too hard to score. What do you set up?
If we decide to flip, that'd be as Guardians and X-Men. If we purposely wanted to take some missions to make it taxing for opponent to secure and for us easier.
Yeah, let's check the wording on First Class. First Class is the start of the activation phase. An allied Uncanny X-Men character can play this card. Each allied X-Men character does not have to spend power the first time they interact with a token. So it is good because if you have extracts and interact secures, you get to obviously use it on
either
more people.
Yeah.
And so we would definitely want to do the interact ones if we're playing Asgard or X-Men. So that's definitely something to keep note of, and we can change that later. And
also with the meteors and the spider, the portals. Those are very big right now in the kind of the tournament scene. They're the hotness. So
Oh yeah.
if you ever make it through to the last couple rounds.
Oh, also, if you want to get super cheeky, I know that's something some people have been doing. Let me pull it up. If you play Hired Muscle and you play the Mayor Fisk mission, your last character activating can just move the token out from underneath them after they put all their people on it, because it's any character can spend 1 to play this card. Each civilian token within range 3 of this character is placed within 2 of its current position. They're civilian secure tokens, and so you can just like surprise, and it moves away. And so if they start moving it too far away, you can just send in Miles, move it, and then move back, place back, and it's like, okay, well, you're not even going to get Miles for this. And it's you just like run in and move their token on like the last activation. And so that's a really cheeky thing you can do. Not to mention, if you have like the Spider People one, where there's the 5 Spider People on deployment F, which is you can move up and move their tokens away from them. Because it only costs 1, so you can do it on turn 1. So you can send in like Peter, you get in range of the middle one, and then 1 on their side, and move them away to where they can't necessarily get to them very easily. And so it's pretty funny.
Yeah, that'll definitely...
Especially if you have someone that has 2 power. Like if you have a Valkyrie, she can move up, play it, and then pick up the one that's closest to them. And so then the middle one is past the center line for them, and they have to go get it. And so if they don't have like a long mover set up right across, yeah, it's really funny. There's a surprising amount of civilian tokens in the scenarios as well.
But that would be good for criminal, right? Because they're the ones that can pop that.
No, it's an anyone card.
Oh, for some reason
that's why it's stupid. It's unaffiliated, cost 1.
Oh, for some reason I thought that was a criminal card. Why did I think is that coming in a criminal pack? Is that why I thought that?
Yeah, it came with I want to say Bullseye or Kingpin.
Yeah,
I think it's Kingpin. All right, so I'm gonna put Hired Muscle in the list so far, and we'll look at it again later. Okay, so do we really want to do Meteors? Meteors is the only other like true Charlie deployment, but it's a control secure, so you have to roll dice to gain it. The only thing I don't like about those is you can't just push people off of it with board control, because they still control it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm a little hesitant on that one. Obviously, if we're going with that strategy, like if we're doing either Criminals or if we're doing Asgard, I think we should do the control ones. If we're not doing those 2 factions, we should not.
You mean X-Men and Asgardians, not Criminals?
Criminals is fine too, because each guy counts as 2 people. So if they can't get you off the point, they have to roll 3 successes on their energy defense, which is very unlikely.
So that's solid. I like that as well. I also like the idea of building a competitive criminal list with the missions in mind. I like that a lot.
The thing I like about Criminals the most is it's very easy for them to pivot into a second affiliation. Mm-hmm. Also, they're good at 2 things. They can fight you or they can play scenario.
Kingpin will kick the shit out of you. That dude is legit.
And Killmonger. You're like, all right, let's build our scenario list. Kingpin, Killmonger. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, this is not what I thought it was. Also, Shadow Organization allows you to play the runaway game really hard. And then obviously gaining priority on a turn that you might want is pretty cool.
Stealing priority is so important on a certain scenario. Like
yeah.
In the one, like, oh shit, I need to do this for scenario right now.
Yeah. Okay, so are there any other secure missions that we want to talk about right now before we go back to like talking about affiliations? We've got one, so we're not playing, I guess Cosmic. I haven't looked at Cosmic in a while. Cosmic Invasion says it's as on map D, which is the diamond. During power phase, Cosmic Vaults, starting with the player with priority, each player rolls a die for each character they have controlling a Cosmic Vault. If they roll a crit or wild, they gain 2 power and are pushed away from the vessel, resolved by the opposing player. So this one you do control for just standing on it, but you can also generate a lot of extra power, but then it can be moved. So I think like Web Warriors would love this, because obviously getting 3 power a turn on your Web Warriors means that you can just continue to control them forever.
X-Men could also like it, because then they can if they have 2 power, Cyclops can move you back, and they can move. Maybe you'll lose.
Yeah, they have a lot of high cost abilities. Yeah. So that's the Cosmic Invasion, and Infinity Formula is pretty basic. It's extra power on map B, as in Bravo. Madman turns City Center into Lethal Amusement Park is the Traps one, I believe. that's why it's not showing. Mutant Madman is an 18-point mission. Interact with traps. You roll your physical defense instead of your energy defense. And in the cleanup, you can deal a damage to an enemy character within 2 if you control it. I haven't been a huge fan of that one, but it's not bad.
I always like the
So I
ones
feel
where
like the main thing about
punch you in the head.
Yeah.
They're funny.
I feel like the main thing for secure is, like, do you want to make it difficult for your opponent to get them, or do you want to make it easy for you to get them? Or can you do both?
I think it's more important that it's easy for you to get them.
Right.
Because it's all about you getting to 16. If nowhere in your list you can stop your opponent from scoring, I think that's a list problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the scenario should be set up for you to score as many points as possible. Because you want the game to end as quickly as possible if you're playing scenario-oriented. Because you want to reduce the amount of time they have to play attrition.
Right. So if you're talking about speed, that's also something to think about. You're probably not securing 3. I mean, if you have 4 secure points out there, you can secure 3 of them. That's pretty fast.
Yeah. No, I think a D deployment is really good for like Web Warriors, and it's probably also really good for Wakanda because they're really good about splitting their force and punishing people who can't. A Bravo deployment would be okay, but it's really hard to get 3 on a Bravo deployment. You have to completely dominate one side of the board. So I think Delta deployments are better for us. Charlie deployments are better for us. I would stay away from Bs unless you don't have a better option, and completely avoid Echoes.
I really like the idea of the Delta deployments. Basically,
Yes,
what I'm
I do
saying
too.
is give me the D. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so Extremis and what was the one I was just looking at?
Thank you,
Portals.
Jeremy.
So yeah.
That's what she said.
So Portals Overrun City with Spider People is the other Delta. It is an interact to control. You roll your energy defense again. On this one, if you roll at least 1 skull, you get placed within 2 of your current position, which is kind of weird. So that's even if you succeed, you still get placed, which is not that big a deal. So again, you would want to avoid this one with with Web Warriors, which is kind of counterintuitive because it's the spider person scenario. But okay. So I think we familiarized ourselves with the secures. The extracts are a lot more obvious, with the exception of the check to find the real objective ones. And on those, obviously, you want to play a faction that has a lot more access to power to use on objectives, like either the X-Men or the Asgardians. Alrighty. So let's go back to talking about affiliations. So what affiliations do you guys like the most in this kind of setup? Do you want to try and do like a dual faction, or do you think there's one affiliation that will give us all the choices we want? Jeremy, why don't you go first?
I mean, what we're talking about Asgardians and Wakandans. Those, I mean, so many of these mash together well. I'm not really familiar with X-Men these days, but they probably all mash together. It's going to be about, I think at this point we figured out the ones that we like, and it's going to be a matter of who do we really like? Like, who do we want to kick this thing off with? Do we want do we want Storm to lead this business? Do we want Thor to lead it? Who's the best at the one? Like, if the scenario we're going to choose, what's the very best that we can possibly do, and then branch off from there. I don't think it's a good idea to start with 2 factions in mind and be like, we'll make this work.
Yeah. I do think that Web Warriors, Asgard, and Wakandans all 3 lend themselves really well to doing a dual affiliation list because their factions are so small, and there's not a lot of faction cards you need to play. Now, that being said, like someone like Criminal Syndicate is really good about dual factioning, but that's because they share so many allied characters with other factions, but we don't necessarily want to play like Cabal or Spider Foes, so that doesn't help us a whole lot. And so if we were to do Criminals, it'd probably end up being single affiliation. But X-Men, also, due to their small size, is going to make it a lot harder to do single faction. So I naturally gravitate towards Web Warriors. I think board control is the way you're going to win on scenario. It's going to be the most consistent route, and also the faction is so small and requires so few cards that it will let you do a dual allegiance. And so if you want to do like Web Warriors Asgard, that's an option. Parker, do you have a preference?
I feel like, actually, one of the reasons why I don't like the small factions for scenario is because I feel like list building is kind of autopilot. Like, you're playing Web Warriors, so I put in all the Web Warriors. And then there's what else? Like, I do not know. Like, just any other good stuff. So Valkyrie and Hawkeye and Zemo, just like put them in there, I guess. So like, I don't know if I'm not saying it's bad. Like, if you want to make the best scenario one, I think Web Warriors, we've talked about it before. Web Warriors are probably the strongest. But I like the idea of something like Criminal Syndicate, where there's a lot more options and there seems to be a lot more to do. It's kind of interesting. I'm actually looking at this in the scenario. So Criminal Syndicate, it kind of sticks out in our list as the only one that has more than like 4 characters in it. I guess Wakandans now has 5, but
yeah. Well, X-Men's new, and Web Warriors actually have 5 now. They got Daredevil.
Right. Daredevil counts. Yeah, that's right.
So Asgard's about to have 5, maybe even 6.
Yeah, they're gonna have 6, likely 6.
Yeah. But again, I think we're going to be a little bit more strict on this. Like last time we just threw in all of the affiliated characters and called it a list. We'll probably be a lot more stringent this time. Like, when we actually talk about, does Venom make the list if all you're trying to do is win on scenario? Like, he's obviously not bad at controlling, but he's not the best.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
So it sounds like we've got 2 votes for Web Warriors and 1 vote for Criminals. Does it sound right?
Yeah. I'm fine. That's fine. Web Warriors is fine. That's a good list to kind of walk through, and especially because we're going to go horizontal and whatnot. I like that.
All right, so let's start with Web Warriors, and we can easily strip them out if we want to. All right, so we've got Peter Parker, Miles Morales, Ghost Spider, Venom, and Daredevil are our 5 Web Warriors. So does Daredevil add anything to scenario play?
He's
he has
red.
A push on his baton hook. Yeah, he's red. Does that help?
And Peter Parker's red, so we already have a red one.
If he does his Devil's Deliverance, his 5-cost AoE 2 attack, he pushes people away from him. And that's about it. I'm pretty solid on the cut Daredevil from the scenario plan, and so there's that. So if we are playing Web Warriors, that puts us at running all webbed up, probably, just as a solid.
Yep.
Is a good card.
Just out of curiosity, Daredevil does have a wild push, right? A range for a wild push.
Yeah, it's his gunshot. But it only pushes size 2 people.
Oh, that's true. I do like that
it actually pushes towards you, though.
Oh, yeah, it's only towards.
Yeah.
I like that it ignores LOS, though, because that's one of the things that happens a lot with scenario play, is somebody will be hiding behind something, but I don't like that it pushes towards, because if they're hiding behind something, and you can't pull them out of the thing, like, it's probably...
Ignores cover, pushes you into cover. Like, damn it.
Yeah, that's actually really it's anti-synergy. Yeah, I don't like that. I'm still with you.
What are all the Web Warrior cards?
There's really only 2. There's All Webbed Up and Web Barrier. Web Barrier sounds cool. You basically you pick 2 Web Warriors that are within range 3 of each other. You draw an imaginary line between their bases, and it's as wide as their bases. Then, for the remainder of the round, enemy characters cannot draw line of sight through that and must climb over it. It basically counts as size 5 terrain. But then in practicality, it doesn't really work unless they're very far away. Because if they're close at all, you just declare a climb action and move into it, and then you see out the other side. And you're like, oh. Like, I tried to use it in a game. It actually lined up pretty well. Like, miraculously, I had people in position to make it work, to try and hide my guy who had the objective. And they just, like, I move short. I'm in the middle of this thing now. I can see through it. And you're like, damn. Like, it was very disappointing. Not to mention how hard it is to get it to go off in a game. I do think All Webbed Up is great because it gives you a way to kind of focus your damage on someone. Like, let's say they pick up the Kree power core, it lets you focus damage into that person to get them to drop it.
Okay. We also have Lethal Protector if we plan on doing Venom, right?
Yeah, Venom in there makes Lethal Protector pretty obvious. It also gives Venom a way to reposition.
Mm-hmm.
So Lethal Protector. Would you bother playing Uneasy Allies?
What's that one do? I don't have that in front of me.
Venom and Spider-Man can both suffer 1 damage when targeting an enemy character with an attack if they're both within or if the other is within range 2 of the same target. And then you add 3 dice to the attack roll.
It costs
So
damage.
it
costs damage
Yeah, it
instead
costs-
of power, which I think is
that's
amazing.
the big part.
Yeah.
It seems
Also,
unnecessary.
it's better than the other. It is a little unnecessary. It's better than the other damage cards because first off, it adds 3 dice instead of 2, and it doesn't cost any power, which is pretty cool. But it's double character specific. But yeah, again, because we're playing scenario, it's probably not necessary, especially considering there's other good cards to play. So I'm gonna just put in field dressing automatically because it's field dressing, and obviously field dressing is good. It will actually, because as a scenario player, you usually don't want to have priority. You want to go second, especially in the later turns. Field dressing will commonly cost you priority, and so it actually doesn't hurt you at all. So there's that. I think we wait for brace or med pack depending on the way the rest of the rest of the list pans out.
Okay.
But yeah, so save a spot for another restricted card. I think that puts us at all the cards we need right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So going back, go ahead.
How many points are we at right now with those that you have?
With if we added all 5 of them,
If you had all 5
with
of
all
those,
4 of them, it's 14.
14.
Because we're cutting Daredevil, so it's
Yep.
it's both Spider-Man's Ghost Spider Venom is 14.
So I'd like to be on the record and say that's a badass team for super cheap right now.
Yeah.
That's really good stuff.
It's you could win games with that on their own. In fact, we might even consider putting in the 14-point mission just so we could potentially lock people into 14 points. Because
Correct.
at 14 points, Web Warriors are pretty hard to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, well, I have MODOK and Red Skull and this guy, I forget his name. And you're like, cool. Have fun spreading out. And they're like, no.
So that's part of your draw for sure too, because I can tell you drop a 15-point mission and or a 14-point, even a 16. Man, put MODOK in there? Probably not. So like that eliminates some of the nastiness right off the bat. Now you probably would because you're ridiculous, but anyway,
Censorship.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's start focusing on. Well, so what do we want to pair this with? So obviously, normally the drop in for the Web Warriors list, because it's 14 points, 17 is really common. You end up putting in Shuri or Valkyrie. They're both great scenario pieces. Valkyrie can throw people every turn. Shuri can push people every turn. So I'm gonna soft pencil in Shuri and Valkyrie, and we can adjust this later as we decide what we're playing.
Mm-hmm.
So those are good think about models.
Mm-hmm.
Valkyrie's the only model so far that kind of wants to play the control point ones. The rest of them all want to play the stand and hold. Jeremy, did you have something to say?
Yeah. So when we're thinking about what we need to add to this list, because obviously we can kind of go about the board and do whatever we need to do, but can we win the center of the board if we do get the gamma on our face? Like, what
I think
models?
we can.
You think?
I think all webbed up gets us in the discussion. It gets us in the discussion.
Okay, fair enough.
Because it's all about, can you set it up? Because you're obviously vulnerable if you're all standing there. Also, though, I would argue if you're playing Gamma, you just take the damage. The game's going to be over before turn 5 anyway.
True enough.
Also, so Gamma only happens if they choose blue. So we've already lost priority. And so we're choosing red. And if we're picking against Gamma choosing red, all we have to do is basically not choose cosmic cubes. And I think we're okay. Because because like most games should be, I mean, the problem ends up being, can you hold your points to like not get outscored?
Yeah.
But that's an interesting conversation. So let's say we're doing worthy hammers just as a generic blank slate. So let's say we're getting 3 of their. Do we get 3? We definitely get 2 of the hammers. We might get 3. The question becomes, do they have enough characters to threaten? Because obviously they should go and get 1 of the flank hammers on the first turn, but then they're out there in the middle of nowhere, which is very optimal for your guys to be able to go get them. And
Venom
so
eats
you kind of
them.
have, So if they telegraph which side they're going after, like let's say they put a Black Widow on one flank, you're like, okay, well I'm going to put conveniently Venom and Miles over here to go get that. And then everyone else is going to go do their own thing. And I'm going to put a fast model on the other side to go get mine. And so that might make it even. So let's say you get 2 of the hammers instead, and then you're going to take your own point, obviously, probably with Venom, maybe with Ghost Spider. So you're scoring 3. I think all it ends up mattering is on Gamma is that you can attack theirs on the later turns to get that 3-point secure. But yeah, it is definitely least optimal because it makes the whole thing a lot more complicated. So are you saying that you want to put in models that will help us fight against those people?
Yes, if we're looking at 14 points, depending on... So if they pick that, I don't think they would dare choose the 15 points against spiders. I don't think that would happen.
Probably not.
I think they would pick a big number. That way they could get their nasties in there. So what do we add?
Well, I just thought of something that you would probably like. So hypothetically, if we pair this with Wakanda, so our basics are 14 points for the base Web Warriors.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you drop Venom and you put in Shuri Okoye. So you've got more board control than you had with Venom, but you also pick up a bodyguard.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm into that. That works great for me. I like everything that offers. Everything.
Parker, what are your thoughts?
I like it so far. I think you'll be able to fight like on an E because Venom can stick in the middle there for a while with and he pull things in. I mean, he's not going to be able to brawl with the biggest characters in the game, but
yeah.
The fact that Spider-Man can like do chip damage Miles can do chip damage all the time, and like you said, if you don't have priority, if somebody does try to come and muscle in and take the middle point, you'll be able to push them off of it. So yet I don't think they're going to be getting like they have it great, and they might try to push through to your point, I guess. And that's when you can attack back on them. But hopefully they overextend and you can catch somebody out. That's the other thing is it's just a control thing, right? So you might have the ability to just pull their guy out and then everybody dogpiles on them and then just do that again the next turn.
Yeah, you definitely get to catch some models, especially like the models that survive by positioning, like Black Widow. Like you just drag her in and punch her with Venom. She doesn't get martial arts if she's out of range too. And so like there's a lot of ways you can get a hold of those models and really punish them. And then the other models like Magneto, you punish by positioning them badly. And so you take away their actions by getting them out of range. So how about we just look at this from an overarching point? Do we think that obviously Web Warriors isn't going to fill up a roster on its own? And so is there another affiliation that you guys want to see paired with this?
To me, I think Wakanda just seems so easy. It slides in there. I just for the sense of being creative, I kind of feel like we need to go something else. I mean...
Yeah.
It just feels kind of...
I'm thinking about Asgard, but they're like opposite sides of the same coin, right? Because Asgard wants the spend a power to interact ones, and so does X-Men.
Yeah.
And Web Warriors don't want that.
Yeah.
And so we could do like Asgard X-Men if we wanted and just scrap the Web Warriors for now and look at it from that perspective. But I think Asgard and Web Warriors would be a bad pair. I think Asgard or Web Warriors and Criminals could be interesting because we don't need to take all the criminals. We only want the scenario ones. Or maybe we just want it as a backup fighting list and we just want to put all the kill stuff in it. But I think we would rather go with the scenario-based criminals. So like Killmonger isn't important then. So we don't have to take Killmonger. We don't have to take Green Goblin because they're not great at scenario. And so it thins that faction down a lot, lets us take only the cherry-picked ones we actually want. Like hell, we could just still play most of the Web Warriors in Criminals.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only card we really care about, because we don't really want priority unless it's like a really weird situation. So we only really want the Shadow Organization.
I almost think Shadow Organization hurts you. You want to take the first hit. We can really... I mean, truly, like the first hit
so
is
you can use your powers against them?
Yeah, you're like, that's a joke. Mm-hmm. Like, what are you doing? Don't hit Peter. Good Lord.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I see when we...
Yeah, I agree. I think Wakandan is super obvious. You just jam in all the Wakandans and see what happens.
It's also very solid.
Pretty solid at scenario.
For anyone who hasn't tried that, like I'll throw that out there. Like you want to play a solid game, do that. Like just without any discussion.
Web Warriors Wakandans it's the triple W's is just solid.
The triple W.
It functions well. Yeah. www.winonscenario.com.
Yeah, they all work together really well. Like they're not like Okoye and heck, even Okoye benefits from the ability pretty well. They all reroll well, and the ability to get benefits off the reroll. The only one who's like doesn't get much is Killmonger. He's just kind of an offensive piece that doesn't get a ton of help from any of the effects.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, he doesn't get a ton of help except for Shuri and the faction ability.
no, sorry. If you're putting,
I know, I'm just kidding.
if you're dropping Killmonger into a Web Warriors list, like
yes, yeah, he's the only one that feels out of place.
right. But I
Agreed.
was thinking like any of the Wakandan people in Web Warriors, all of them feel good. Like Okoye feels good, Black Panther feels good, Shuri feels good.
So yeah, I totally agree. The Wakandans and Web Warriors pair really well together.
Yeah.
What about Web Warriors and X-Men? Like, I really want to see Wolverine on the table. Like, I think he's amazing, and he's got that.
So
it's so good.
I want to respond to that, and I want to respond to Parker at the same time. When it comes to Killmonger and Wolverine, people that just like dish out damage, as Web Warriors, you have the opportunity to feed them. Like, you never have to move, you never have to pay for your charge. I'll bring people to you. Like, so your opponent activates, they move up, they check the alien ship wreck pile, and you're like, oh, that's cute. And then you drag their happy ass across the table, and we're like, meet my new friend James. He's got these shiny hands. And you're like, oh, God.
James.
And he's like, carves you to pieces. And also Venom's back there just in case. Yeah, his name's James. Read the card.
Oh, I know his name's Jimmy Jim.
Jimmy Jim Jom.
Jimmy Jim Jom.
Jimmy Jom. He's Edward Scissorhands. Jimmy Johns.
Jim.
Yeah. Anyway, so those do have spots. Although I think obviously you would end up choosing a different 4-point character to drop into Web Warriors. I find it very unlikely you would do that, especially since they don't get the all webbed up bonus. And so it's a cool idea, but practically you're never going to do it. It's like, well, I could play Hulk and Thor and Doctor Strange in this.
So
you won't. Like, it's bad.
Again, I feel like you're adding to the 14 points. Like, what do you add into Web Warriors that will help them do what they already do excellently? Anything? It doesn't matter that much.
There's two amazing 3-point characters with Valkyrie and Shuri, so you tend to want to go into those affiliations anyway. I just think Asgard isn't very intuitive. And also, if you actually play Asgard, there's such a different list than Web Warriors, you're going out of left field. Mm-hmm. But they can abuse the interact secures.
That's actually,
which is fine.
Here's an interesting idea. Being able to drop into Asgardians means if your opponent is if you're trying to win on scenario, and your opponent goes, ooh, he's playing Web Warriors, I'm going to pull out my taxing list that he's not going to be able to easily control me because I'll just come up and I'll use a point to take it. Well, then you could switch to Asgardians. It's a way to deal with that other scenario play that your opponent maybe, like if your opponent gets priority and picks a blue that you can control without being on top, and Web Warriors is automatically disadvantaged there. So you're like, okay, so I'll just switch over to Asgardians and I'll play this game. It's maybe not your primary thing because you're interested in playing Web Warriors, but if your strategy is I want to win on scenario, then maybe it is better to have two very different winning abilities. The ability to just switch to the other scenario type.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if like running just Valkyrie in your list is enough. Like, if you're running Web Warriors plus Valkyrie, you are just as good at, or you're actually better than most people at taking 1 point. Mm-hmm. And so that's half of the ones you're going to interact with, I think, most of the time. Maybe not. I guess if you're doing meteors, there's 3 on the center line. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's like certainly not ideal. It's probably on the lower end of optimal. But like, is that worse than Gamma Wave, or is that better than Gamma Wave? I don't know. I think if you're really worried about that, I think then from the opposite standpoint, like, I don't know, my games with Asgard and my games with Web Warriors, I just think Web Warriors are still going to win that game, but that's just my brain telling me what I think is going to happen and not me actually analyzing it. So you think it's good to have the dual faction in that respective, I'm going to play one that's good at one and one that's good at the other, but then what do we do with our missions?
Well, I think you plan on playing Web Warriors. I'm just saying, if your opponent is purposely giving you, picks priority and purposely picks a mission to make it more difficult for Web Warriors to win, you have the ability to say at that point, okay, then cool, I'll switch over to Asgardians.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're not running the missions yourself, then the only time you're ever going to play Asgardians is in that really weird situation.
Right, but we've already established that Web Warriors is the scenario we're going to play for, right? We're playing Web Warriors 80, 90% of the time, right? We're playing them almost every single time. So basically, I was thinking from this list perspective, which was, okay, when do you not play Web Warriors? And the answer is never, ever. If it's never, ever, then we should just put in, Daredevil and the Hulk and Doctor Strange and just do all kind of weird stuff. Who gives a shit? Like, just put him on there and make our opponent go, what the hell is he playing? Like
the other 4 slots are just Infinity Stones I can't play.
Yeah, just like you could just
ultimate flex.
Infinity Stones, Thanos.
Yeah. Just put Thanos.
You don't even play Thanos. You literally just put in 5 stones. You're like,
yeah,
I have Web Warriors plus Shuri. I win.
Yeah,
like I'm that ultimate flex.
So
yeah, just do Corvus Glaive, Reality Stone, Proxima Midnight, and be like, look at my cool attrition list. I bet like you're not gonna do it, but who cares? Like, is that what you do because you're just so sure you're always gonna play?
No, but my point was like, if you're not putting the missions in your selection, then you can't even take advantage of. Well, I guess you wouldn't know that the mission was going to come up that way, so you probably wouldn't pick. Yeah, I guess I'm thinking of it in a timing perspective that does not exist. And so I'm like, well, if they play one of the interact missions, then you should play an interact mission. I'm like, well, duh, you can't. Like, it's already been picked. Yeah, I'm just being dumb. So that was my brain working through that wrong.
Okay, so my point.
Go ahead.
Okay, so my point that it's possible to just put in you're just hedging a bet, right? You're just saying, okay, well, let's go ahead and have the option in here to win on the other scenario type, or make it easier to win the other scenario type. Because I'm only ever playing Web Warriors unless I don't get priority and my opponent picks one of the blues that requires me to spend a power to take it.
Yeah.
I feel like what you're going to run into, the only thing I see Web Warriors having a problem is they can't guarantee flipping the damn meteors or the other one, the interact one. And you could shift over to Asgardians just because you're going to be weak at that, but you're also going to know they're playing Asgardians. They're the best at it. So what is the response to that then? It's one of those like they danced, you dance back, then they like where do you go with that? Is that the right move, or do you go, how do I kill Asgardians, or how do I screw them over, or what do you do aside from playing Asgardians? Because they're also good at it. I don't know. Because everything else, you're fine. Web Warriors don't give a shit. You're absolutely right. Especially with Shuri in there, everybody just goes where you want them.
I'm just thinking, like, I feel like with Web Warriors, I would be able to win on attrition against Asgard, but that's just because I don't respect Asgard's attrition game. And I know, like, if they're playing scenario, it's like, but I have Web Warriors, so it's like they're not getting the extracts, right? Like, I guess it's possible they get some, but, like, you could eventually set up a Miles, like, come in and take a token, and then it breaks the tie. I don't know. I just feel like Asgard is the least synergistic of the other options. I would be much more open to a Criminal Syndicate or X-Men pair, but X-Men, I don't know how X-Men would play. That would be interesting. I mean, thematically, Spider-Man should definitely be fighting with the X-Men, right?
Yeah.
Like Capcom, get them.
In the Ultimates universe, they were really good friends, actually. Spider-Man showed up with X-Men a whole lot.
Yeah. So let's look at criminals. We haven't talked about criminals very much. So what are our options with criminals? So Kingpin obviously would have to be included. Other options currently are Bullseye, Crossbones, Green Goblin, Killmonger, MODOK, Mysterio. Oh, not Mysterio. Taskmaster. That's weird. Are there enough of these characters that you would want to play?
I just don't think so.
In Web Warriors? No.
Yeah. Well, not in Web Warriors, but like as an alternate list.
I don't.
So let's say you throw in Kingpin and MODOK, right? You with me so far?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you throw in Taskmaster.
Mm-hmm.
Taskmaster's okay.
I mean...
All right, so there's your 3, and then you're supplementing it with Web Warriors.
I mean, criminals...
So do we have 3 character slots left?
Criminals with a Venom is fucking serious business. Like, that's a problem. Other than that, like, I don't know.
Okay, so let's look at possible lists real quick. So we've got Kingpin automatically in. Let's say we're just doing MODOK for funsies. and Taskmaster. So that's 12 points. And so if we just throw in Miles and Shuri, right? And so how does Kingpin, MODOK, Taskmaster, Miles, Shuri sound? Very subpar. I mean, it's actually a fine list, probably, but...
So at 17 points, what does that make? Or 18 points. 17 and 18 are the popular ones. 18.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just weird. So you're... Yeah, this just... I'm against criminals now. The points are just weird. They're just not... the real problem is there's just not enough scenario-based criminals. Right. I mean, you could just put people in, but like it doesn't really matter.
I feel like the criminals kind of suffer from the same thing Brotherhood does right now. They don't have the fantastic scenario pieces really yet. I think Mysterio and Shadowcat will both be. I think Shadowcat's going to be a Black Widow type scenario piece, and I think Mysterio's going to be a control character, kind of like an Enchantress style. And so I feel like it's funny, but as Guardians doesn't have Enchantress yet, and Brotherhood doesn't have Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Juggernaut yet, like there's a bunch of the factions that could get really strong with scenario pieces are just not there yet, literally.
And maybe Asgard's a lot better when they're supplemented with Web Warriors. Yeah. And so I'm just thinking about when I've played, it's like, all right, well, your 17 points is all Asgardians. It's like, well, obviously you're going to drop Hela for someone like Peter or a cheaper character. Mm-hmm. And I think Loki's only good with the Mind Stone, and so that's 10 points in already. It's like, okay, well, you throw in, Peter and Valkyrie, it's like, now what? It's like, it just feels okay to me. It doesn't feel... Like, I don't see how you're winning on scenario with that list. I could see you not losing, but it just... I need to see it happen, I guess. I know it's not bad. I just... Thinking through it doesn't feel scary. So let's say we did X-Men instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question was, how far are we wanting to take this conversation tonight?
Oh, we'll just go to a natural stopping point. We don't need to finish this tonight.
No, I knew we weren't, but I just didn't know how far we were trying to get to.
I wouldn't be surprised if we do this for... I expected to do this for at least 2 episodes. I could see it bleeding into 3 to like polish it off, but probably not.
Little interesting point with Asgardians, because I feel like there's something here. I swear. Talking about your whole like gamma wave deployment, if you see something like gamma wave happening, is Loki standing on a point like he seems kind of terrifying for your opponent, right?
Loki is good Loki is good from the Asgardian perspective. Obviously, Loki standing around in gamma wave is very annoying. Yeah. But at the same time, it's only annoying if they have spending superpowers. Like, and a lot of people don't. Like, if you've played the Soul Stone, there's those games where you get, like, 1 or 2 power. Like, it just depends. Some factions fucking hate it. Like, if you're playing against Avengers, it's crippling. Playing against Defenders, it's crippling. But there's some factions you're just like, I don't care. Like, I just punch you.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter. Like, Cabal, for the most part, like, really doesn't give a shit outside of, like, MODOK maybe, or like Magneto, like the really expensive people. Like Zemo doesn't necessarily like it, but he's not crippled by it.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking of like I Am a God in Web Warriors seems mean, like being able to reroll even a skull to go back to blanks, like, and Trickster. Like between I Am a God and Trickster, and
but where's the 5 points? Like, what are you taking out of Web Warriors for that?
I was thinking specifically about like I was trying to think of like. Where my head's at, obviously, is, okay, what's going to mess up the game plan, right? If Web Warriors are so strong at controlling, they're so good at taking secure points and extract points and being mobile, they're so good at scenario play, under what circumstances do they lose? And so I'm trying to think of ways to drop in a model to stop that from happening. Does Loki, is he good enough to just stick in the middle of the board and go, no, like I'm just going to Wonder Woman most of this game and watch you and just control you off the point myself, because he also has great control. So he's not Venom. He's not going to take a punch on his jaw, but can he? Right. But he's not. But he usually doesn't get hit twice because of Trickster, and he might take things that are way bigger than you think you should take because of I Am a God. I
don't think he's terrible. I just think he's expensive, and part of the best. maybe even the best thing about Web Warriors is that their characters are so cheap. Like, they've got 2 4-pointers, but they've also got 2 3-pointers, and everyone is good at their job. And so putting in a more expensive character like Loki, who's not on his own particularly, survivable, like, he's slippery, he's hard to get a hold of, but he's not going to hold up to repetitive fire, kind of like Venom might, depending on the situation. But so it's very similar to like Peter Parker or Miles. Like, they can both, if you get a hold of them, they're probably going down, but they're really good at shrugging off like glancing blows. Like, you're not going to get them with one. You're going to have to get them with several attacks. So that's nice, but it's just like, whatever you take out, it just feels like 5 points of board control is better on any other character in the list. Like if you're taking out Venom for Loki, Venom is just as likely to do as much board controlling as Loki. He just does less overall controlling. Mm-hmm. Loki's definitely debuffing them more. And without anything to back that up, I just feel like it's a different strategy. So I don't think it works particularly well with him. Like, if that was the case, we could just put in MODOK, who has a better Mind Stone and does better other things, like, actually well. And so I think the only reason you take Loki is because he generates a lot of base power and he debuffs people.
Okay.
Putting MODOK in Web Warriors is the fucking apocalypse. Like, I'm telling you, that right there.
There's definitely games where like you will just win games because of that. If you play 19 points of Web Warriors plus MODOK, and it's like, what do? It's like, they're not going to just one-shot MODOK. So the problem just ends up being, it's like, can you put him in a spot that's relevant enough and have him like win you the game? He's basically just a stall tactic.
And this brings me back to my original point of just put Shuri, Valkyrie, MODOK, like just make a list of things that you wouldn't want in Web Warriors also, and just put those on the list and just play Web Warriors only. Because if every other faction in the game is just a dilution of the list, except maybe Wakandans, then just put Captain America, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, like just put characters that are hard to kill, MODOK,
Thanos,
Valkyrie, Shuri, like, and go. What? Thanos? Yeah, just do it. I'm not being facetious. I'm not trying to. It sounds like I'm being obstructionist, or I'm being like, well, fuck it.
It definitely feels that way.
But I'm sure of it. I feel like since we're so sure that Web Warriors are so strong, then why don't we just put really good characters in Web Warriors, and that's the list, My only argument against the Asgardians in general was that we weren't going to be doing anything that the Asgardians wanted with the Web Warriors. So if we were going to take Asgardians, we should get rid of the Web Warriors, was my argument. Okay.
Like, there are other lists, like, I think, that pair with them. And I'm looking at the X-Men now, and it doesn't look as annoying as Criminals did. The only downside for the X-Men is they have 2 4-point characters, and neither of which you really need. You just have to have one of them, because you need to get 3 of them to really be affiliated. Is First Class X-Men only? I think it is, right?
I'm looking at.
Yeah, each allied Uncanny X-Men character does not spend a power. So you don't get to share that ability with anybody else. So you kind of want as many X-Men as you can get if you're going to be playing First Class. But I guess saving 3 power is fine. If we were to squeeze in the X-Men, go ahead.
Well, I don't hate the idea of Storm leading basically the minimum squad and then a bunch of fucking spiders. That seems really good.
So Storm, Beast, Cyclops, I think, is more viable for a truly scenario list because he's got field leader and he can push people. So that's 10 points. Like, that's very palatable. And so even at 17, you throw in Ghost Spider and either Venom or Peter. And then at 18, you can cut Ghost Spider for Venom. And so you're running Peter, Venom, Storm, Beast, Cyclops. That's pretty scary.
Why not? Why not Miles? Just out of curiosity, why Ghost Spider over?
You could just Miles. Miles is only good on the extract part. Yeah. And if you're not playing him as a leader, like if you actually look at, he has almost no board control at all.
Right.
He's exclusively just a skirmisher that steals objectives. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't need him for the steal and obviously you're playing Alien Ship, he's in your list. It doesn't matter. Like if you're playing one of those missions where you absolutely have to get the extract, then yeah, he gets in automatically. But that's like a game decision kind of thing, I think.
Right.
As where obviously Peter and Venom are much better on board control overall. You might end up playing Ghost Spider, but I think that gives you too many backline characters. And so Spider-Man and Venom can be decent frontliners. Beast is a fine frontliner. Yeah, because Venom, Beast, you still have a lot of rerolls. Because Beast rerolls dice, you got Web Warriors reroll, Spider Senses reroll with Spider-Man. I don't hate this. It doesn't feel particularly strong, but I don't hate it. It definitely is better than Criminals, and so I feel happy with that.
And it's also part of the new hotness right now, so I like that too. We're talking about relevant shit that's hot off the presses.
It feels a little stiff, just because you're locked into like two characters you don't really want. But you have a really mobile list, plus you've got cover on everybody, which is pretty cool.
Oh man, yeah, cover on everybody.
Like, giving Venom and Peter cover is pretty cool.
And I think the mechanic of just the place that she has is kind of crazy.
I mean, you might actually just take both Spider-Men, so you have, as many characters as possible that have spider senses and cover all the time.
That could be pretty nasty.
It could be super annoying. Cyclops letting Venom move is pretty cool. Pretty sure that's on any allied.
Oh man, that would be awful.
Yeah, no, it's not. Everything else about Cyclops has been so disappointing, but yeah, that works.
He can do that?
I don't think Cyclops is...
He can do.
Yeah, he found one thing he can do. It didn't help that when I finally did Optic Devastation, it did nothing.
It didn't do anything.
Fucking dice. It's like 2 hits. Like, god damn it. Like, you have one job, idiot. Just look at people. Just look at them. You just have to open your fucking eyes. He has eye-eye coordination. Couldn't figure it out.
So it's Storm, Cyclops, Beast, Wolverine. Just like, or does Wolverine even make the list?
You could definitely cut him for another mercenary type model.
Yeah.
It's definitely not needed, but it does give you the cool option of I'm going to feed Wolverine and Venom. Again, it's a cool theory. I don't know that it works. I've never tried it, but it is cute.
Okay, a hot take then. Wolverine goes out for MODOK. I know MODOK's a really weird, like, one of these things is not like the other one, but he's so strong. He's so strong.
The only downside to that is you're locked into those 3 X-Men every game that you play X-Men. That's the only downside. I'm not saying it's bad, but it seemed to be the obvious 3, so it's not.
That's
the
true.
only other option you would have. Well, no, because you only need the X-Men for first class, so you wouldn't even want to put in a rogue agent. So if you're doing that, it's 15 points is the 3 X-Men and MODOK. At 18, you can throw in Ghost Spider or Shuri. Shuri's obviously a good throw-in. Valkyrie's also a decent throw-in.
I was actually thinking MODOK specifically for the Web Warriors lineup. You guys were saying MODOK and Web Warriors just seems so dumb.
For the 19 points?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely terrifying because there's going to be that turn where, like, especially if you play Gamma Waves at 19, it would be so demoralizing. To be like, yeah, I'm going to go up on scenario, and then MODOK just walks into the middle of the table and moves everyone off all of the points and just parts the Red Sea and fucking, like, Ghost Spider just goes double long to the end. It's like, I score 3, MODOK scores 2, there's 5 points. And you're like, I hate this game.
Or also, MODOK with Ghost Spider is amazing because if they ever go in on him really hard, he'll just leave. Or MODOK with rerolling skulls, Jesus. Like, MODOK rerolling skulls is...
That's true. I didn't even consider that he could reroll his skulls. That is pretty cool.
MODOK reroll skulls.
Alternatively, like, let's say you go in on, like, a super melee character, like Hulk gets to you, right? And he starts punching you. Well, he can't throw you or push you, so you're like, whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess he can, strongest one there is, but he's not going to do it with his attacks. And so, your turn, you shoot him, he's still alive, so you... Battle Will MODOK, move him away short, and then he goes to move forward and attack you, and you lifesaver him out again. Yeah. And he's like, God damn it.
So, I'm looking at the roster we have right now. Does Wolverine get dropped for MODOK? Does Valkyrie get dropped for MODOK? Does Shuri?
Oh, no, Wolverine for sure. Wolverine, because Wolverine has a very small amount of board control.
Yeah.
As where Valkyrie has guaranteed board control with her 2-cost throw. She also is a 2-power generator, so she's good on the off chance you get one of those weird scenarios.
Okay.
Yeah, MODOK is obviously stronger than Loki, especially in this format, because I don't need him to debuff the people in the middle. I need him to protect my melee characters. I need him to control things, and MODOK's just better at it.
Yeah. Also, he can kill things. He can just remove models.
It's true. Turns out melting people's brains is pretty good at stopping them from killing you.
Okay. So,
Jeremy, I know you stepped away for a second. We were just talking about MODOK getting to reroll skulls in Web Warriors.
Yeah. Nothing stops the MODOK.
I think it's a bad idea. I don't think it works at all. Move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so if that's the case, Storm, Cyclops, Beast are the 3 X-Men. Spider-Man, Venom, Spider-Man, and Ghost Spider are the 4 Web Warriors. And then the 3 wild cards are Valkyrie, Shuri, MODOK.
Mm-hmm.
That seems pretty strong, other than if you go X-Men, you know what X-Men you're doing, but you're trying to play scenario X-Men, so...
Yeah, it feels a little weak on the X-Men side, and I don't know that you would play it very often. So the times you would play it is basically instead of as Guardians. So this is basically doing everything we can to not put as Guardians in this list.
Yeah, look how
right?
we're trying real
hard. Because MODOK is a replacement for Loki, and then Storm, Beast, Cyclops is a replacement for Hela and Thor. Shut up. Now, don't get me wrong. I think this list is better at scenario than the Asgard list.
It is.
There's the very niche reason that Asgard would be better is the power generation. But First Class makes up for the early power generation. And then also having the ability, potentially, you can use the Cyclops ability to share power between people. And so if MODOK is paying all the power for all your attacks, you're more likely to have power to interact with the scenarios. But I doubt that would ever happen, so... the Storm mode would be obvious, but you'd be way more mobile than everybody else. And so that would be pretty cool.
I also think there's something to be said. There's one more interesting thing to be said, which is when you put these 3 characters into the roster, you get access to another affiliation and 2 different leadership abilities. So, you want to talk about, flexibility and versatility, if you really wanted to. I still think 90% of the time it's going to be just
It's
Web Warriors.
This is definitely boat or 2 mystery boxes as far as leadership abilities go.
Yeah.
But there are 2 mystery boxes you can choose from instead of the boat.
It could be anything.
It could be anything, even a boat.
Even
you know
a
much you know what a boat, Lois. No, that's definitely what this feels like. It's obviously Web Warriors. But if you're in a weird spot, you could play something else. I'm not super happy with this.
I feel like Storm, Cyclops, and Beast could be Mind Stone, Power Stone, Reality Stone. I feel like they could be. But
this is objectively better than that.
Yes,
so I think this is easily playable. You could put this on the table and win some games. It's probably not super optimal.
Why? What's suboptimal about it?
I mean, we just talked about it. There's a 1% chance you're going to play X-Men.
So that's suboptimal?
Maybe 5%. That's why it makes it suboptimal. It's because it's not about how good the Web Warriors are. We know they're amazing. I think they're the best faction in the game. I've said that before. Obviously, they're good. I don't think this roster is a strong roster because of what you said. Storm, Beast, and Cyclops are different names for Mind Stones, but they're technically not. And so it's could be better. This definitely could be better. I don't feel like this is it. And starting with the Web Warriors might have been a bad choice because, as we all know, the Wakandans are the obvious slot in here. And so I'm going to go ahead and just slot them in. So Black Panther, Okoye, Storm. I just overwrote Storm for someone else, and now I put Storm in. And then who's Killmonger? Okay, so the question ends up being, do you even take Killmonger? And my argument to Jeremy was, I think you do take Killmonger because it gives you the opportunity to play Usurp the Throne if you have space in your tactics cards for it. And so you have a random spike of 2 extra victory points, and Usurp the Throne is unaffiliated, so you can actually play Killmonger in Web Warriors, and it doesn't look stupid.
I really like that. I really like that also.
Worse.
I actually really like that also because for the same reason you talked about earlier, which is there's so many ways to bait and switch with Spider People. Web Warriors really easily control your opponent. It gets them too far in, or their big bad model will go in on Venom, and Ghost Spider will be like nope, and get him out, and then Killmonger goes in.
Also, the Wakandans, even with Storm, is only 16 points.
Right.
So there's a decent amount of opportunity there to play something else. And so, like, throwing in a Ghost Spider randomly to keep Black Panther alive longer, or throwing in Miles in case you're playing, like, an alien ship, or just Valkyrie for another great solid piece, are all reasonable options.
So
the
whole Spider-Man Black Panther, Spider-Man and Wakandans is the 4 Spider people, Black Panther, Shuri, Okoye, Killmonger, and the 2 Storm also. So the only
all
wild
5
card...
Wakandans. It's all 5 Wakandans, the 4 Web Warriors minus Daredevil, and then Valkyrie.
Yeah.
That's the list.
That's what I have here. Okay.
Yeah. And so that's the obvious that me and Jeremy were talking about. We talked about this yesterday because we were kind of prepping for this. And also I just randomly built this list, and I thought it was pretty solid. I've never played Wakandans. So the downside to this is it doesn't give you a lot of flexibility for the control scenarios like what you guys talked about earlier. So you don't really have a pivot option other than still win the game. You do have Valkyrie, who obviously makes the list if you're playing one of the control secures. But outside of that, you don't have a lot of options. However, obviously Shuri being in your list is going to help even if she's not pushing people off of points, because she makes it easier to flip them back to your control, and she gets a shitload of power, so she'll be able to help with that. And honestly, like, as far as the controls go, the biggest problem with the controls is you have to stand up there with the person. Let's say Thor moves up and takes control of a point, and then Ghost Spider walks up, impact webbings him, pushes him off the point, and flips it over. Like, that's not really that hard. It's still all about very intelligent activating order and being able to take advantage of the fact of which of your opponent's models have already activated. And if they're playing Asgard, you probably outnumber them, so you have a slight advantage in that respect. The problem being that you're not going to have a lot of power left over to do any of your other control stuff. And when they actually do attack you, it's going to fucking hurt. So that's the problem, is you just need to survive long enough to still get to 16.
Another thing about Wakandans, though, is Black Panther is not to be underestimated if you have the 4 points in the list.
Oh, God, yeah. He's amazing.
Like putting him in Web Warriors, and so now he's re-rolling all of his skulls when he pops his power that lets him reroll everything, and then his blanks are successes, and he's rerolling 1. Man, like, the guy is he can go Captain America really hard all of a sudden.
Yeah. And so I think this is the obvious Web Warriors combo. I think if you're building a Web Warrior list, you need a strong argument or desire to not want to play Wakandans, because Shuri's already in your list, and honestly, Black Panther should be as a 4-point drop-in. If you play Daredevil over Black Panther, I will slap the fuck. There is absolutely no justification for that. Let's just read his card real quick. Let's let Black Panther auto pushes on melee attacks. That seems cool. He's a 4/3/3. He's speed long. He succeeds on blanks on defense. Oh, and then you can also reroll a defense die. Oh, and you can reroll skulls. He has pounce. He throws himself at you. He can reroll all of his attack dice, and he has an attack that is effectively an AoE that pushes everyone away. It's like, hello, have you ever played Gamma Wave? It's like a guaranteed 3 points. You just run in, drop 3 power, and then an extra 3 power to roll 9 dice. If you roll a wild, you have the point. And there's nothing they can do about it if you activate last.
Yeah. It's
like so silly. Yeah, this guy is so much better than stupid fucking Daredevil. Anyway, yeah, so I think this is the Web Warrior play. So final question on this topic: do you guys think any of the combos, not including Web Warriors, would be another interesting conversation for next time? Do you think like Asgard X-Men would be interesting? Should we broach that topic next time?
I actually really like that idea. Trying Asgard X-Men, I think it's an interesting. I feel like you're doubling down on that spending points, spending power to control thing.
Well, you need to remember, Parker, half of the scenario cards require you to spend power to interact with them.
Right.
Because the red ones all do.
Right. Yeah, I think like that by itself, because you're running both sides of your thing. I guess here's the one thing about X-Men and Asgard, and this is one of the things that we talked about in the very first episode that I was struggling with. I always struggle with when I play a dual faction list, which is which one of these factions do I even pick? Under what circumstances is it better to switch to another faction? And
new plan.
Go.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, But I've been looking at Mystique's faction ability, thinking about only using it with Brotherhood characters. What if you played a heavy rogue agent list with Mystique? And you basically got first class all the time with everybody.
So explain, how would you get that?
So obviously you take Mystique and Toad, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mystique and Toad are in your list. If I can type. Okay, so then you just throw in like either Bucky or Taskmaster, depending on which one you prefer. They're obviously different. Parker's back. I lost him for a minute. So I got you back, Parker.
Yeah. It was just it says
Okay.
my videos just ran down to nothing on Discord. Yeah, everything else was fine. Everything else is running.
Yeah.
It's just Discord.
Almost lost you. Okay, so Mystique and Toad is like the base, which sounds like a terrible list so far. But so let's say we throw in Taskmaster if you like Taskmaster. If you prefer a ranged character, that's absolutely fine. In fact, I'm actually going to change it to Winter Soldier because you have 2 close range people already, and so I think that would actually end up helping. Oh no, I just changed my mind back because you're going to secure your back point automatically with this list. All right, so now you've effectively got 3 Brotherhood characters, even though you don't give a fuck about Brotherhood, right? And so now, what scenario characters can we bring in from like Web Warriors or Asgard or something that don't want to spend power to pick up points?
See, now you're onto something. Now you're cooking with gas. This is what I want to talk about. Yeah,
So
I mean, we could play we could do Web Warriors again, or we can figure out how to do this, because I love the Brotherhood's ability to basically functionally create a character in your list that doesn't have to stay back.
Yeah. So now what if we went with a more swarm orient? God, man, we have to stop talking about this. This is going to take forever. So we could do. This is going to be quick. We're not going to go in nearly in depth as what we've been doing. So this is going to be a quick topic, and then we'll discuss this in between episodes, and then we'll talk about it more next episode.
Okay.
But so what if we just start putting in a lot of really efficient characters? So if we do we do Spider-Man, Miles Morales,
Punisher.
We could also do regular Spider-Man, Punisher.
Yeah,
Punisher's amazing
Shuri,
at this.
Yeah. Black Widow. All right, so far I've got Mystique, Toad, Taskmaster, Spider-Man, Punisher, Shuri, Black Widow. Obviously, we need to throw in. No, we're out of we're out of characters. We can only take 2 non-affiliated characters. So we need to throw in Sabretooth, who's fine for flank points. That'll work. All right, so we've got basically 4 Brotherhood characters in Mystique, Toad, Taskmaster, Sabretooth for 12 points. And so then you throw in Shuri, puts us to 15, and Black Widow puts us to 17. That's a 6-character list of Toad, Black Widow, Mystique, Taskmaster, Shuri, Sabretooth.
Why is Sabretooth in there?
Because you need 4 Brotherhood
you need 4.
to play more than 5 characters. Now you could just drop in Magneto and get rid of Taskmaster, but he's not exactly a scenario character. This is what I'm saying. They just need one more. If Quicksilver was out, this list is off to the races. But we're 1 character short because you can only have 1 rogue agent count for your list.
Yeah.
Or else I would just put in Bucky and it would work. Yeah, because if Sabretooth drops down to Bucky or Quicksilver, then we're upgrading Black Widow to Punisher, which is a completely different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is interesting. Alternatively, you could just put in a bunch of Web Warriors and just say, I would rather use this ability than the Web Warrior ability, but that's just an alternate option. You could also do throw in a bunch of Asgardians for even more power generation. There's a few things we could do with this. I'm sorry, Parker. I interrupted you because I was so excited earlier. Can you finish your point, or did you forget?
Oh no, that was the end of it. I think I didn't have many more to say. It was fine. My and was just more of the same.
Okay. Jeremy, do you have any more thoughts? Do you think there's a good combination here? Do you think Asgard X-Men would be good?
It might be good, but to me, it's not even close to what we've already have. So we can talk about it, sure.
Okay. All right, so I've got Thor, Loki, Hela, Valkyrie, Cyclops, Storm, Beast, Wolverine are the technical inclusions. Do you bother playing Hela ever?
Probably not, right?
In that,
Do
no.
you ever bother playing Wolverine?
I think Wolverine is kind of, if you're playing X-Men, I think Wolverine's an upgrade to Beast if you need to play 3 characters.
That's fair. It gives you a point option.
Yeah.
So he might make the list. And he's not terrible at board control. He has a potential throw that's actually pretty consistent, because if I recall, it is on damage on his big attack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it only costs 3, and he just has to deal damage, throws up to size 3 in any direction, which is actually pretty handy.
He also can throw himself if you're willing to play that card, so he actually has a little bit of extra movement.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he already has a charge, so it's kind of a wasted card slot. Sabretooth is the one that doesn't have a charge, so if you're playing Sabretooth, usually you need Weapon X training.
Right.
So I've put in Shuri. Yeah, X-Men are kind of in the same spot. I imagine when Jean Grey comes out, we're going to have a lot more board control available in X-Men, and that's going to fix some stuff. All right. So probably keep Wolverine. We'll throw in Peter Parker. Who else? Give me another good scenario character. I already got Shuri.
MODOK.
Good job.
Thank you.
I actually really like MODOK with both X-Men team abilities. I think both of them seem pretty good.
I actually don't like the one with Cyclops, because
MODOK
never
mind.
Is your powered generator.
Yeah, it's his basic attack that's really strong. That's right. But he could be himself he's not going to use the chair very much, but he might be giving his power away to others.
You know, I really wonder if Cyclops is going to become a really good option when we get, like, what's his name? Cable. Like, what if Cable has an amazing, like, 2-cost attack that's, like, just, like, everyone wants to use it all the time? Like, who knows, right? Actually, you know what? You do take Hela, because Hela's actually really good when she doesn't have to pay for her fucking attack.
That's true. That is actually really true.
Yeah. So you're actually just basically playing both factions plus 2 characters. You just throw in Shuri and your other choice. Yeah, so we'll talk about this a little bit more, but I think we've settled on probably Web Warriors Wakandans, and we'll talk a little bit more about that next time. Parker, did you want to run through your comic corner since you missed last week?
Yeah. So my comic corner this week actually is kind of a no-duh. I don't know why I never thought about running this. Probably for the same reason that I never play the bad guys. I never play bad guys in this game. I don't even think about them. I only just play good guys. But this comic I have for Comics Corner today is actually all about good guys and bad guys, and the roles they play. It's called Axis. It was a major Marvel crossover event right at the end, right before the Secret Wars, where they reset it. And at that point in the Marvel Universe, all the writers, of course, already knew that they were going to get a big reset, so they were just jumping the shark hard. Just whatever kind of cool things they wanted to do. What kind of things can we do? Really explore the space in terms of the Marvel Universe. And a bunch of people actually contributed to this. It was an Avengers and X-Men crossover event. So Reminder, Kubert, Yu, Dodson, Chung, like lots of people had their names and their hands on this one. But the premise is this, and it's going to sound really stupid when it comes out of my mouth, but just so you know, they were trying to think of a way to do this, and this is what they came up with. Professor X got killed by Cyclops when he was the Phoenix at the end of Avengers vs. X-Men. Spoiler alert.
No! Spoilers!
But, so Charles Xavier is dead. Red Skull gets his hands on Charles Xavier's brain, and in ways we don't understand, super science, basically uses Charles's brain to get his mutant powers? Question mark? Shrug.
Wait, does he just gain his powers, or he builds a machine to like utilize his brain?
They basically the way they say it is they like transplant Charles's brain into Red Skull, but that would mean he's not Red Skull anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's really not, like I said, they were reaching really hard for this. they wanted to make a super duper bad guy, super scary bad guy. And so it's Red Skull's conscious mind with Charles Xavier's powers. And basically he restarts another Onslaught event. For those who don't know about Onslaught, he was a really cool X-Men villain that was basically what would happen when you take like the greatest mind of telepathy in the known universe with Charles Xavier and just has basically constant trauma happens to him all the time, like psychological trauma. Well, he would have a subconscious problem, but his subconscious problem would manifest as a giant, super powerful telepathic monster called Onslaught. And so basically, when Red Skull takes Charles's powers, he basically assumes the mantle of a new, Onslaught. And who is there to fight him at first? It's actually Magneto, who is out for blood because of Red Skull's involvement with the Nazis. And so he wants to kill Red Skull as a Nazi, and so immediately Magneto ends up drawing in the Uncanny Avengers, which is a hybrid of some mutants and Avengers that were working together at the end of the last Marvel universe. And basically all the Avengers call in their Avenger buddies, all of the X-Men call in their X-Men buddies, and pretty soon it's a bunch of X-Men, a bunch of Avengers against a new Onslaught. And they're losing very, very badly. So just when everything seems lost, Magneto shows back up with a bunch of bad guys. So now we've got like Loki and Hobgoblin and Sabretooth and Doctor Doom and Carnage, like all in on it. So now it's everybody fighting Onslaught, who is Red Skull. And as a last-ditch effort, Doctor Doom and Scarlet Witch try this inversion spell, where basically they were trying to get Charles Xavier's conscious mind to come forward and basically take over his mind. So Red Skull was going to be basically Red Skull and Charles Xavier were going to switch so that basically they couldn't kill Onslaught. He was too powerful, so they'll just have Xavier take control again by trying this inversion spell. So Doctor Doom and Scarlet Witch do this inversion spell, and it works too well. It does invert Onslaught, so we're basically now he is Red Skull with Charles Xavier's conscious mind, but it also inverts the moral polarity of everybody there. So all of the X-Men and all the Avengers become completely morally bankrupt, like the opposite of what they normally are. And all of the villains become morally righteous. And so it's called Axis because literally all the characters, the main characters in the Marvel Universe, like all their big ones, turn on an axis. And so the good guys become bad guys and the bad guys become good guys. And the fallout of that is really entertaining. So one of the reasons why I like it is, there's lots of what-if comics and alternate universe comics where, what if, Iron Man was actually a megalomaniac? What if Sabretooth, got released, realized all the murder he did was a serious loss of life? And, what if Loki was the worthy one and Thor was the unworthy one? Like, those kind of questions are lots of debated about in these kind of hypothetical comics, but they decided to go ahead and just put them all into the Marvel universe. So for a while, all of the heroes are villains and all the villains are heroes, and the only characters that weren't there, which was Captain America and like Spider-Man, are the only two heroes that are like kind of left to figure this out and do something about it. And you follow them try to do this. And one of the reasons why I bring this up from Marvel's Crisis Protocol, because of course, you can play good guys with bad guys and bad guys with good guys. So any Marvel Crisis Protocol game could probably just set inside of the Axis issues, and it'd make perfect sense because everybody's anybody in these.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's a very cool. If you like those kind of like what if and hypothetical kind of scenarios, if you liked the what if series of Marvel comics, you'll like Axis. And the conclusion of it was very interesting, actually. I don't want to spoil it, but the conclusion,
I assume all of that just happens at the beginning, right?
What's that?
And then the rest, I assume all of what you just said happens at the beginning, and the rest of it is them resolving it.
Right. Like what I just described, it seems like a lot of story packed into a small place, because it is. It's not a very long graphic novel, but man, it is a ton of things happened. What I just described was a really awesome, harrowing, very suspenseful, like, first 15 pages. And then the rest of it is, like, them all just trying to resolve this. Like, the X-Men basically all becoming the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and the Avengers basically going like, well, screw this, we're just going to rule the world because we can. It's cool stuff.
I assume Loki takes Thor's hammer at some point.
Yes, he does. Loki takes Thor's hammer
Whoa,
at one point.
Jeremy, easy. Don't rub your microphone on your shirt.
My favorite scene, my favorite panel in the comic book is a bunch of B-list spider bad guys are get caught, when they're trying to steal a bank, and so they got, the bank tellers and stuff for ransom, and they're like, man, this is going to go south. Spider-Man's going to show up any second. We are so screwed. And guess who shows up? Carnage. Carnage shows up, and they all go, oh no, we are all going to die. and he goes, what are you talking about? I'm not going to kill you guys, but you are going to jail. And they're like, what? and so that's what he does. And so when Spider-Man shows up, it says there's all of them are webbed up in symbiote like stickiness, and it says from your friendly neighborhood Carnage, and he goes, huh. like he doesn't understand like how Carnage didn't murder everyone there.
How in the fuck was Carnage at the fight and Peter Parker wasn't?
Yeah. It was definitely, there's definitely some jumping of the shark, and just kind of like, there's a lot of just go with it. While you're reading about it, it just, because it's, like I said, it's at the end of the Marvel continuity, and so they obviously knew it, and they were just like throwing out babies and bathwater left and right. But it was fun to read. It's fun to read, and it's also it fits very much into the MCP kind of, everybody's anybody who knows why they're fighting, but they're fighting. Just go with it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Well, that's going to wrap us up for today. Thanks for joining us. Sorry if we rambled a bit. This has been Brandon.
And Parker.
And Jeremy.
And thank you for listening to your friendly neighborhood podcast. All right, so Parker has abandoned us and is never going to be on the podcast again. Yeah, I'm just going to mute him now. So, did you listen to the episode, Parker?
Sorry, I'm watching the part where he climbs out of the couch.
Oh yeah, just sew me into the couch. What do you mean sew you into a couch? I think I shared that on Facebook. It's like season 6, episode 13, A Very Sunny Christmas.
Did you listen to it, Parker?
Are you talking about the podcast, your last one?
Mm-hmm.
No, I was not. I did not listen to it yet.
We dominated the airwaves.
You didn't listen to it. How do you know what we talked about? Yeah.
Wait, what? This one is linked to the last one? Shit.
Oh my god. How are you even going to know who married who or who killed what? Jesus.
Yeah. I was watching the series finale of not to be named show for lack of spoilers, but I mean it's not super recent, but so I'm watching the final episode of the entire show, and I'm like, I feel lost, and the main character's talking about how his wife died, and I'm like, she didn't fucking die. I was like, maybe this is one of those like looking forward things, and they've done like fake deaths in the past, and I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, and the further it goes, I'm like, they're not stopping this. And so eventually I just pause it and go back. I check the episode list. I'm like, I watched this episode. And so I go back to playing the episode I was on. I'm like, no, I'm totally lost. And so eventually I just went back to the previous episode. Apparently I just stopped at 20 minutes short of the end, and she dies in the last 20 minutes. I'm like, well, this slightly changes the dynamic of the show. All right.
I do that when I fall asleep watching Netflix, because Netflix is a motherfucker. It just advances you, and then you'll wake up, and you're like watching half of an episode. Yeah. Oh, it's horrible.
So I have an Amazon Fire TV stick in my room. Do you have the same problem? If you just turn the TV off, it will keep playing on the stick.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, bedtime, TV off, turn on Audible on sleep setting. And I'm like, oh, nope. Like, it just kept playing 3 more episodes while I was in bed. Like, okay. All right, Parker. I want you to guess how many total listens our podcast has now.
Every episode?
Yeah.
210.
You are incorrect. We're looking for 211.
Darn it.
So there was a $1,000 cash prize if you were correct.
Sucks to be me.
No, but we actually have 729 listens.
Wow.
We're moving up in the world.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I know. I want to say 2 weeks ago we only had 500. Like, we're starting to get popular, I think. Like, people are paying attention. We're the movers and shakers of the Kansas City meta.
Got a bunch of emails. They really liked last week's.
I have paid someone to make more bots to listen to our episodes, but I don't think
they're Russian bots. Nobody cares. It'll be fine.
Yeah. 2/3 of our audience is in the U.S., and obviously that leaves a third elsewhere. We now are on the board in Sweden.
Nice!
Fucking finally.
We've got, let's see here, Germany, Denmark, Singapore, Australia, Netherlands, Poland, and Sweden are all.
I've been trying all my pro-Sweden propaganda this whole time, trying to hook that fish.
Good.
I finally got it.
Yeah. I've always viewed myself as a pro-Sweden guy, so.
Fan of the Swedes.
All right. Well, that's enough with our updates. The one person in Sweden's like, hey, they talked about me.
He's big. I like him. Or her. Brandon, you'll like this. I do not. In fact,
I don't like many things. This is not.
You like Magneto, right?
I do like.
Well, in the latest issue I just got for Christmas, the new X-Men, the post House of X, Powers of X, X-Men. They one of the things when you have all the mutants together and they're thinking about ways to weaponize basically mutant powers, they. Basically, somebody constructed a list of all the different ways they could think of to combine Omega level mutants, like to do cool effects. Mm-hmm. And one of them, so at one point they're being attacked by these aliens or invading the island, and so they need to kill a whole lot of people very quickly. And so they have Magma, which is somebody who can control liquid rock. She pulls up a volcano in a fissure under the sea and just hurls a huge amount of magma up in the air, and then Iceman freezes it all. So magma on the seafloor is actually extremely rich in iron from all the rust that settled there billions of years ago. And so all of a sudden, just all over Krakoa is just billions of shards of metal, of iron, just in the air. And then Magneto goes, broken metal with sharp edges, whatever will I do with that? And then he murders all of the aliens simultaneously with a volcanic eruption's worth of metal. And you're just like, huh. I guess if you had that much iron, you could just do that if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm. I'm reading the Mutant Empire novel series, and they talk about how Iceman and Storm combine their powers really well, because Storm, creates a huge amount of moisture in the air, which makes it a lot easier for him to affect large areas. I'm at the climax of the 3rd book, and so spoiler alert if you're reading the Mutant Empire book series and don't want it spoiled. But so let's see, it's basically all of the X-Men that are currently alive fighting in the middle of downtown New York against all of the acolytes and the people that are on the side of Magneto. And there's a huge wave of humans that have come to help, and the Sentinels have just been defeated because they reversed his overwrite on the Sentinels, so he's no longer in control of the Sentinels, so Magneto had to kill all the Sentinels. And so Magneto is on his way back from killing all the Sentinels to stop the X-Men from taking back New York. And the Juggernaut has thrown in on the side of the X-Men because he's technically human and is like, I don't want to be a second-class citizen. And so he's fighting with the X-Men to stop the Brotherhood, which is funny. And it's pretty cool. It's super bloody. There's all kinds of people just getting murdered. And so, pretty excited about that. Although in the book series, maybe you can throw some light on this, I thought that Xavier couldn't affect Magneto while he was wearing the helmet. Or is it just, it dramatically limits his ability?
Oh, I always thought it was like functionally immune. Like he basically was a black spot on the astral.
That's what I thought too.
Like what it does is basically removes him from the astral plane. Like he can't interact with his mind.
Yeah. And so in the book, and maybe he takes his helmet off at some point, they just don't really talk about it, but you'd think that'd be a poor strategy. But anyway, multiple times Xavier contacts him on the astral plane and pulls him into the astral plane for discussions while he's supposedly wearing his helmet. And they even talk about how Xavier could basically just kill him mentally from a great distance, but he won't do that because of his like morals. I'm like, what? Like, did we just not talk? Like they talked about earlier how he couldn't find him, and now they're just acting like the helmet doesn't matter. So I don't know. It was weird.
That sounds dumb and bad.
Yeah, it feels like a big oversight.
He said he was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm
dare.
thinking about how I have to change my setup now because it's very different.
I don't know if I would do it, Brandon. I cannot see it.
You can't see it.
It's so tiny on my screen. I don't know if Jeremy has. I can't. It's so small.
I see what you mean.
I
won't do it.
I'll just do it on my screen.
Okay.
That's what I usually do while you guys are talking. I'm making the same thing over here.
Okay. Stop sharing. All right. I'm back.
Is Second Wind any good?
I play it when I play Hulk because Hulk can't get stunned, and you don't want to ever shake. You obviously don't want to shake with Hulk, and because you never get dazed, it never goes away. You could play like Wong, or you could just, if your opponent doesn't have a lot of stuns, then you can just not worry about it.
It's an Avenger card, so I'd never even look at it.
I feel like it's kind of bad, but maybe it's not that bad.
It's not great, but sometimes you only want to heal for a couple. It's only one power.
Mm-hmm.
Man, to take up a card slot with this card, I can't imagine it happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just what world is that?
When you play bad characters like Hulk, it's a lot easier to justify.
Oh God. You're like, whoa. Second win, motherfucker. Blam.
Dude, I played it in games. And been happy with it.
Yahtzee.
Oh, never mind. I remember what it needs to be. Never mind. This is interesting. This is an interesting lineup.
Are you just building a random list right now, Parker?
We were talking about the X-Men list earlier, and so he's trying to adapt it for Avengers.
Got it.
Since you can't use, basically, I wondered if Cyclops for Captain America is not. It's not a totally even switch. They do different things, but if just making it cheaper to use the retaliatory strikes would be, a net sum gain for Cyclops' ability. And I think I also like how you don't have to be close to do it. It's much more independent. Like everybody just goes off and does their own thing and is more difficult to deal with. This also allows me to do something different that I wanted to do. I like this. I really want to try this version.
Tell me that Face Me is in that list.
It is.
Perfect.
You weren't here for when we talked about how Face Me was so good in this list.
Yeah,
because
I'm very excited for Face Me in this.
You can forcibly make people trigger your retaliatory attacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have right now. My Texas cards are Avengers Symbol, Exceptional Healing, Weapon X Program, Inspiring Monologue, Lethal Protector, Face Me, Med Pack, and I do not know if it should actually be. Maybe it should be. Let's Come Back to Life. One, I can't remember the name of it.
Field dressing?
Field dressing.
You should 1,000% have field dressing in your list.
Okay, so it's field dressing instead of Med Pack.
Was he not here when we talked about it being the best card in the game?
No, I was here for that, but I don't remember. We also talked about like if healing is in your list, and right now the only healing is really Venom. I guess Sabretooth. Never mind. Sabretooth and Wolverine also fucking heal. Never mind. Forgot they all heal. And
yeah, because you field dressing Wolverine, immediately activate him. He's got 3 hit points.
Right.
And Sabretooth, you get to just like, okay, go ahead and attack him. He's just gonna fucking kill one of your guys. It's fine.
So field dressing and then deal with the devil because I put Ghost Rider in the list. I don't know when he gets played, but it's worth the tactics slot, and I like Ghost Rider being there. In bigger point levels, I would slot in Ghost Rider instead of probably Sabretooth or Venom. Probably Sabretooth.
So normally I'm very against dumb cards like Seeing Red, but I'm curious if you could make like an all retaliatory list where all you do is punch people when they do stuff, and you could put in like Winter Soldier, Sabretooth, Venom, put in Seeing Red in your tactics cards, put in like Sacrifice and Escort to Safety to just they can't attack who they want, and every time they try to, they get punished for it. Because
I'm looking up Seeing Red. I don't even remember this card.
Seeing Red is just vengeance. When a allied character is dazed or KO'd by an enemy effect, another allied character within 2 of that character can spend 3 to play this card. After the effect is resolved, the character makes an attack against the character that caused it. So you can do any attack you want, even a spending attack. And then Sacrifice is just each character spends 1 and you bodyguard for them. Escort to Safety is a 3-cost lifesaver off of Ghost Widow. It's you spend 3 and you pull them away. And then Bucky has...
If you attack them within like 2 or whatever.
I think you have to daze them. It's That's I got right. your back. Yeah, it's same thing. If your Deos are killed, spend 2. After attack resolved, you make a rifle attack against them. But it's range 5, and so his is much better, obviously. You can also put in Punisher to stack up punishment tokens if they get dazed and stuff. So you're running like Punisher, Bucky, Sabretooth, and Venom, which are all fun characters, but I mean that's not a list. I guess you have a rogue agent, so you can kind of make it work.
Well, you got to put Hawkeye as well.
You can also throw
in
Ghost
one of the
Rider.
best ones.
Yeah, he retaliates if you attack him. That's not bad. So yeah, Hawkeye would be good. You could put Cyclops in there hypothetically because he also attacks if you target him, but it's not really the same thing.
Ghost Rider does something if you attack somebody else.
Right, yeah, I said Ghost Rider. But I don't know what affiliation you're playing. You could probably make Cabal work with Sabretooth and Bucky and Red Skull. But having a rogue agent in there means that you could basically play whatever you wanted. It just would be weird. Because you don't have a leader in there. So it's basically just pick a leader, that's what you're playing. I would imagine Avengers would be best because, reducing the cost of all of those abilities would obviously be really good. And so you've got 2 before Hawkeye. You put Hawkeye in, you have 3, and you're only spending 10 points. That's not bad. So 18-point list, you put in 2 of your heavy hitters. Play a bunch of bad tactics cards. Jeremy, how you doing? You tired?
Yeah.
You have fun morning?
I had to go to work. I had to go in early, and life at work is absolute hell. So yeah.
The roads were decent though?
Yeah, the roads were fine this morning.
Okay.
Why is your camera off? Did you just turn it off?
I moved. What? You can't see my camera?
Nope.
I can see
it on my screen.
Really?
I'll turn it off, turn it back on.
I can see Brandon.
Oh, I just see like squares dancing.
You're probably still watching the stream.
Yeah, you're looking at the stream. You have to close stream.
That. I turned off my stream. Jeremy doesn't know how to use computers.
I don't know how to use that.
Hover over the box. It should give you an option to close it.
Nope.
Well, I can't see what you're doing, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I can't see you. It's not.
There is an option to close that if it's the streamer window.
It's not.
Did you see 3 windows or 4 windows?
I just see 3. Me, you, and Parker.
The one that's supposed to... Yeah, the one supposed to be me. Does it say, like, Brandon, or what does it say?
It says Mutilus.
Okay. Click on it.
Okay. It just made it big.
Okay. It's still, like, grayed out?
Yeah. Okay. That's weird. Maybe I'll just shut it and restart. I can do that.
Just leave the channel and join back in.
Okay.
It might be that your Discord's bugging out. I don't know.
Oh, there we go.
Now we can't see you.
I'm hiding. Yay!
Yep.
We got the team back together.
Back together.
Yeah.
Putting the band back together. Oh, boy.
So I tried to make it fist just then. Instead, it just looked like I was pointing really hard because I messed my finger up.
What'd you do?
Did you get your finger bitten off by a cow?
No. My dumb... It's one of these things that... I don't... Do you guys ever do this where, like, I'm not poor.
Not poor.
I'm not poor.
That's yet to be proven.
I could own, like, a new can opener, But since the old can opener was sort of opening cans, it's kind of like whenever you get you ever have like a tube of toothpaste where like 89% of the tube of toothpaste you'll use it in like 2 weeks, and then the last 10% will last you a month. Like that happens. I do this. I have done the same thing with my can opener. I have this electric can opener, and it's just not opening cans very well. But instead of getting a new electric can opener, which I could, I just have not. Instead, I've been jamming knives into cans and opening them up the rest of the way when the can opener won't finish the job. And so today I was doing that, and my hand slipped, and the side of the can, the aluminum jagged edge, gouged a chunk of my finger off. And so
they'll make cans out of aluminum. It's tin.
Yeah.
Aluminum is expensive.
Right. The tin can.
There's a decent amount of zinc in there.
Yeah.
You probably have zinc poisoning.
So you're
going to die.
I'm not going to die of zinc poisoning. I'm going to die of mercury poisoning.
There you go.
But
because despite not being poor, he buys the worst food, which is high in mercury.
No, I'm going to die of mercury poisoning. All my time spent in the lab playing with all that mercury. It wasn't. Well, I didn't play with it like they used to. My grandpa used to tell me stories about how they used to play with beads of mercury. He was like, "It's fun." Or like, "What is? It is a fun substance if you also don't mind dying early." But I get myself a little popsicle stick stint so I don't bend it. So it's not letting me. All I can do is be really accusational. I cannot be. I can't make a fist pump right now.
Okay, that was a good story. If you're using 90% of a tube of toothpaste in 2 weeks, you're using way too much toothpaste.
I'm not saying. I'm just giving.
He's like blue. And there's like a little flower design on each one.
I don't know about you.
Frosty swirl.
I like to fill up both cheeks with toothpaste before I brush.
I just swish a lot.
He has to make it look. He actually makes it
look
look like with the picture on the box with like a loop and like a little twirl at the end. Oh, that doesn't look good. Scrape that shit off. Start again.
Yeah, he scrapes it off, washes the brush, starts over.
This looks
Every
good.
time he gets it just right, and the brush is so wet it just falls off. He's like, no! Like, yeah, start over. Yeah, so I will use every bit of a tube of toothpaste, but it uses at the same rate. Like I use the same amount of toothpaste every time. It's just I will, squeeze it down repeatedly and then like fold the entire thing into the nozzle to get the last little bit out.
Yeah.
And then you scoop some out with the brush. Like, I'll use all the toothpaste, but like it doesn't like I've used 80% in a week and then the last 20% lasts 3 years.
Maybe I'm being facetious and I just don't notice until it's a lot of effort, like at the end, because every single brush.
How about this?
But
do you just squeeze until toothpaste comes out, or do you like start at one end and just like slowly press it all down? Like, are you actually moving it all out, or do you just squeeze until toothpaste comes out and then like you've got all this leftover back in the corners?
I do not roll up the back. I squeeze it out of the back at the end when I'm trying to get every little bit out again.
Oh no, yeah. I start at one end and I just push the whole thing down like a popsicle, like those really cheap popsicles. Like I'm bringing it all up at once. Like I'm not having any leftovers down.
Yeah, the push pop things, right? Those ones where you squeeze.
Yeah. It's all coming out at the same time. It's just like I don't leave because I've seen the people that just like squeeze it like Play-Doh and it's like I got toothpaste. You're like, no, I can't do that. I have to work it all the way from the back forward in a brick.
Interesting.
You
don't just do a full squeeze every time?
Slowly moves to the right side.
Just a full squeeze.
Do what?
Every time. Full squeeze.
Yeah, one full squeeze. I actually lay the tube open in my hand and just karate chop it. Whatever lands on my toothbrush. That's how much we're using today.
I think we finally got Jeremy's forum name. Full squeeze.
Full squeeze.
Full squeeze?
Yeah, I
only throw over
Jeremy, when I eventually run out of podcast names, I'm just going to need you to sign off as a different person every week. It's like, so you can be Full Squeeze this week, and then like next week you can be Big Tiny or something.
Oh no, I think the new joke is my forum name is just some random fucking name I come up with every week too.
There you go.
We should put you in charge of From the Forums, and then your forum name is whoever we're doing that week. You'll just be everybody.
Peabody77.
Oh, you could be, what was it, Dark Legacy? Is that Travis's forum name?
Oh, like God.
He's the Rules Infernal. Just like, I'm Dark Legacy. Like, well, back when we were doing L2 War Game, Max would always be, What's Ryan? He would be Ryan on DACA, but Ryan was Age of Egos. That was his name because he was a playtester for Age of Empires, and so his forum name was Age of Egos. But he was a mod on DACA, and so Max would just pretend to be Ryan. He's like, "My name's Max. I'm Age of Egos. I'm a mod on DACA. Don't at me or I'll ban you." Like he would say shit like that every time he was on the podcast, and then the whole time you're like, "What are you doing?"
Just being obtuse.
It was fun. Yeah, he was just like, "Yeah, be that. It would be fun." And so we never got Ryan to get He's like, "Yeah, you should send me a message. Hit me up. I'll talk to you on DACA." But Ryan never says like, "Who are all these people messaging me?" Anyway. All right, I think we're ready to get into it. You guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
If you say so.
You don't look ready. If we were in a foxhole, I would not be reassured by the way you guys said ready.
Oh, sorry.
I'm the only one going, aren't I?
You're right. You're right. That was not very uproarious.
And go. Wait. No, go.
So, real quick before we get on to it, we should be ready. I think we're going to start the list build conversation with like what kinds of lists are there. And so, like, what is the strategies we're trying to build within our list? And so, I guess kind of start brainstorming about that. Obviously, there's like the Web Warrior style, like full on scenario attempt rush, like scenario rush, I guess. There's like hardcore attrition that is more of an Avenger style, and like heavy synergy, like and buffing with like defenders. Jeez, now I can't stop burping. Anyway. You guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Parker looks so ready.
Sorry, I had a really bad, like a really intense headache for just a couple. I mean, it's still there, but closing my eyes makes it better.
Maybe it's a tumor.
It's not a tumor.
I was waiting for it. you got to set him up.
I will not be.
Knock him
So
down.
they can knock him down. Oh boy, what time is it?
Tool time.
Casting podcasts.
Why are you laughing?
Jeremy doing peace signs, trying to make me giggle, and he worked.
Oh, I wasn't looking. All right, put your axis in your used column.
Yep. One of my favorite parts is Tony Stark, like his character, is really awesome, because it's basically like, well, what happened if Tony Stark was like not didn't give a shit about other people and he was just willing to use his genius to make infinite money? Like, how would he really do it? And the answer is he does some diabolical bullshit. Like he is so he has access to Extremis, right? The virus that will rework your bodies from using your immune system. And so he fucking makes an app for that. He puts Extremis into the water supply. And he says you can you can use this app called Extremis 1.0, and you can make yourself look any way you want to. You want to be perfect?
Mm-hmm.
You want to live forever? Go ahead. They're all in-app purchases, though.
Yeah.
And so the first taste is free. Anybody can look at whatever they want, but then you got to pay for the apps.
Conveniently, the Extremis 3.0 mission is like cell phones.
Oh, really?
Yeah, did you not notice that?
I did not realize that, but yeah. It's
yeah,
probably
the Extremis 3.0 mission is their little like cell phones.
Yep. So that's what it is. But yeah, it's 100% taken from this. He decides to basically he markets Extremis, which is like the antithesis of his whole arc about Extremis, because he's terrified of what would happen if somebody got a hold of it. But he just gives it to everybody without asking them.
Well,
and then
you would have to assume the good would outweigh the harm, right? Like if you could just cure like all disease by like letting hospitals have access to this stuff.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's profiteering off of it, right? And it's almost all
no, right. I get the evil version of him, but
Right.
I'm saying the normal version. Like, there's got to be a way to like utilize that properly.
Yeah.